Australia is poised to ruthlessly drive the advantage on day 2.
I've got a belief, you hear a lot of journalists use the word source. A source says. I would say, change that word for coward. A coward says.
There's no cowards in the Australian cricket team, not ever. We're really proud of the last 12 months. How we've fronted up, the way we've played, the way we've conducted ourselves. So, the players can certainly hold their heads high.
Brilliant blue skies overhead as players take a knee. Gesture in West Indies cricket that has meant so much, taken up by the Australian Test side for the first time.
We're cricket players, but you can't leave your values at the door. People stand for different things, so something like taking a knee this week, we're doing it out of respect for West Indies, in support of equality. Anyone that says that's a bad thing, I'm not too bothered about it.
The Australian team puts its values on full public display amid a curious cricket culture war, as Pat Cummins reveals himself as a captain like few before. Cricket Australia Chief Executive Nick Hockley to discuss the key issues confronting the game. This is SEN Test Cricket.
For Host Plus, an industry super fund for all Australians. Welcome to SEN Test Cricket.
It is a day that swoons with national pride, given the deeds of the Socceroos overnight, and Matthew Leckie's goal will stand eternal. So it's a little more sedate, I think it's fair to say, here in Perth, where it's a heavily overcast day. There was just a little bit of mizzle walking to the ground. In fact, Australia will resume at 2 for 293, with the two mainstays of the order, Marnus Labuschagne and Steve Smith, in occupation. Labuschagne at 154 and Smith at 59. The partnership is worth 142 already. The conditions will assist the new ball that the West Indies have got, but they will need to make inroads, and inroads fast, as Australia eyes something in the vicinity of 500. Gerard, Whateley with you ahead of day 2 at Perth Stadium. Part of our commentary team throughout for Bundaberg Ginger Beer. Simon Katich, good morning.
Good morning, Gerard. Good morning to all our listeners, and good morning, Flem.
Damian Fleming, hello.
Morning, Gerard. Morning, Cato. Want some runs this morning. Want to see Marnus go big, and Smithy, the new version, or the revised version, going big and chasing Marnus's total.
Yes, it's so well set for Australia to prosecute their position.
It certainly is. I think that was what they did so well yesterday in that first session. They identified that was probably going to be the tricky part of the day's play, got through it, and then cashed in after that when the ball got older and the West Indian attack, which is quite young, particularly with the young Seals and Joseph. When they waned, they pounced.
And the Labuschagne century it's an imperious record on home soil, and the determination to go big in his previous 3 Test centuries. He hasn't been able to do that, and twice it sort of materially affected the fortunes of the team. There's no mistaking both his demeanour and his words for what the possibilities might be.
Yeah, I think he's had a little bit of a quiet time in 2022, but I think what we saw yesterday was someone that's on top of his game. He spent time in the Shield before this leading in. He found it tough at times, some of the wickets they played on, but 7th Test 100 here in Australia, and that record is getting more and more imperious by the game. So I think today's his opportunity to get a big score. You don't often get these opportunities where you're 150 not out overnight and you come back with the open checkbook to bank as many runs as you want. So he's got that opportunity in front of him.
Yeah, they won't be declaring for a very long time if it gets down to that. So he can bat and bat deep. And so important too, if we're going to win Test championships, if we're going to be number 1 in the world, you need a dominant number 3. And Australia's at their best when they have that, from, Ponting to Ian Chappell, Greg Chappell, those sort of players. And, for him to be banking and averaging mid-50s, and if he can maintain that, then, wow, we're in a very good position to getting into that Test championship, winning it and domination. And then if your number 4 can average in the 60s, that's a great platform.
That's the bedrock, isn't it? That's the historic bedrock, what they do at 3 and 4, and it's the 8th time that these two have shared a century stand in Test cricket.
And it's on the back of a man that's averaging 95 in 2022 at 36 years of age, I think, Usman Khawaja. So I think this top 4 is the reason why Australia's sitting number 1 at the moment, because when you look around the top teams in world cricket, There's not too many teams that have that level of experience and that level of class, particularly with their test records, and particularly in these conditions where they're all dominant. Yes, Davey Warner missed out yesterday, but he's got a great record here.
We're just watching Marnus Labuschagne, who's been out in the middle having a look. He's got his pads on, his training gear, so he's setting himself up for the day ahead. It was an accomplished inning, so maybe best marked by his leaving early. He was in the fourth over and batted the remainder of the day. Very disciplined, and I think sort of spoke of his development.
I'm not sure how much Usman and Marnus have batted together for Queensland, but I'd assume batting with Usman would have a very calming influence. And Usman's an excellent lever of the ball as well. And Kato, you just mentioned that was a pivotal moment there. We could have lost 3 or 4 wickets if all the edges had carried and they'd taken their opportunities bowled a bit fuller. So it was almost like a blueprint to test match batting on a greenish pitch is, let the ball go, wait for the bad ball, and then you can cash in later in the day, which they did. But it's probably as good as I've seen him play, to be honest, because of that ability to leave. When they got straight, he's always loved whipping it through the leg side. The only little chink in his armour I can see is he's almost a compulsive hooker puller, and a couple of times he got lucky. But I would think the South African attack will use that and test him. If you're good enough to continually get away with it, you beauty. I don't think you can get away with it every time. So it'll be, I think, how he chooses his shot selection with the short ball through the leg side.
Yeah, spot on. I think the shot selection stood out yesterday for both of them, both Khawaja and Labuschagne, in that they knew that driving the ball through probably cover and mid-off, which is pretty much what it was like back in the day at the Wacker, until you were in, you had to make sure that you really got used to the pace and bounce on the wicket, because if you didn't line the ball up right, you fed the slips and the gullies, and that's what they did so well yesterday against that new ball. West Indies probably didn't feed them enough of that length to get them playing those shots, so that's probably the error they made. But then later on, once they were in and the ball was older, we saw some beautiful off drives, particularly from Marnus Labuschagne. And then Khawaja, whilst he perished on the front foot, it was a pretty good ball from Mayers. And that was probably a blueprint for them, that what they needed to do more yesterday was get those two more on the front foot, because early on, Marnus didn't really want to commit to the front foot and he got caught on the crease a few times and squared up. But that's probably the error the West Indies made. They just weren't full enough for long enough with that newer ball.
No, Usman's was a peach. That was an absolute peach. And sometimes, you say, well, everyone should be bowling that length. Sometimes it's a bit harder when you're quicker, but they needed to be at least within a metre of that length ball. Joseph and Roach, the quicker bowlers, and they just couldn't do it. Mayers gave them a blueprint how to bowl on this pitch.
And Steve Smith has looked utterly untroubled. So I feel like this is well scouted. Anybody who saw him in Adelaide in that one-dayer and then has heard him speak, he's lived those words in what we've seen in his 59 so far.
Certainly. I think, for me, I mentioned it late yesterday on air, is that a really good sign with batsmen, particularly in this form of the game, is their strike rate. We know in the shorter formats, the higher it is, that's what they're looking for. But in Test cricket, it's not always something that batsmen are looking for. But it's normally a pretty good indicator of how well someone's playing and how confident they are, because they just go out there and they naturally score quickly because they're just on top of their game, and that's exactly how he looked yesterday.
And that's his post-2019 Ashes career. I think he's still averaging the 40s, which is 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 still career. I think he's still averaging the 40s, which is still career. I think he's still averaging the 40s, which is still career. I think he's still averaging the 40s, which is still career. I think he's still averaging the 40s, which is still career. I think he's still averaging the 40s, which is still career. I think he's still averaging the 40s, which is still
built tough. From a West Indies perspective, they tried hard, and I think there was moments where they challenged the outside edge. Their most heralded bowler was their worst, I think. don't think we saw what we were hoping to from Elzari Joseph. And they might have wilted late in the day in the heat, but it's much cooler today, and they have a new ball with which to see if they can fight back in the first hour.
No, I'd give them a 7 out of 10 overall. As I said, they didn't have a lot go their way. I thought Joseph's first spell, I was thinking, wow, we are in trouble here. Then he went away from the game plan. When you're pacey, the threat of the short ball's always on, isn't it? So the longer you can keep that sort of allure, the better. But then the next two spells, there was probably 60% short ball, so it was so predictable. And what disappointed me, the odd time he did bowl full, it's still shaped. So he's got a natural away swinger, but it should swing around today, second new ball. The green grass will keep the ball new, so if they look after it. So, yeah, if I was Phil Simmons, I'm going, look, we need to win this first hour. If we win this first hour, because I don't think, Cato, if you just bat them deep into the day.
Absolutely spot on. I think the West Indies certainly didn't disgrace themselves yesterday. I liked the fact that they had the 4 slips in at times. They just didn't back it up with the right probably line and length. And I think in Australia, you've got to be prepared in that first session to go for 100-plus runs, not worry about the runs you're going for, but know that you have to take probably 3 wickets with that new ball in the first session, because if you don't, that's what happened yesterday. You pay the price later in the day. So you have to be prepared to...
Report for Rainbird Smarter Irrigation, the intelligent use of water. What did you see when you walked out there this morning, Simon?
Yeah, it looks pretty good. Look, yesterday wasn't really overly hot by Perth standards. Yes, it got to, 31 or so, but I think overall it's got such a good even coverage of grass that it hasn't probably opened up anywhere near what it would if it had been high 30s. And today with the clouds being in, I can see it holding together pretty well, and I expected it to be a pretty good wicket yesterday. And there's runs out there if you're prepared to have a good game plan like the Australians do. Whether the West Indians can handle our attack on that wicket with extra pace and bounce and height, that's probably going to be the question later in this test.
Yep. It'll be, there was a leave from Stephen Smith early, and on a lot of pitches it probably would have crashed in bail height to middle stump. But he knows this pitch. He trusts the consistent pace and bounce. Can the West Indian batsmen know straight away they're going to leave the length and wait for the Australians to get too full or too straight? This is always the question for touring teams in Australia, and it'll be the same in Adelaide day-night.
T20 World Cup postponed by 2 years coming in, so it's meant that we've had a very compressed schedule throughout this summer, and a lot more content than normal. I think starting on a Wednesday, probably not the best. It's a very busy time. People are at school, people are at work, but really hope the crowd builds towards the weekend. And I think people are just getting used to this stadium. And as you say, it's been a couple of years since we've had Test cricket. But certainly speaking to people yesterday, the atmosphere around the ground, those people were having an absolutely fantastic day out, and we just encourage people to come down as the match progresses and towards the weekend.
Why did we start on a Wednesday?
Again, it comes down to the exceptional circumstances of this season. The scheduling's really complex.
Campaign on to rally people to come back to the cricket at this stadium, having been denied Test cricket for a couple of years?
I think certainly since the squads have been in town. I mean, the Australian squad has been here for a number of days, and seeing the players out and about. They had a game of beach cricket with a local club. I know that they've been speaking a lot to media, to various networks. So certainly we've been wanting to beat the drum that it's on. So I think there's no lack of interest. I think it just does come down to slightly less than perfect scheduling, but those were the particular constraints of this season.
Do you know if there's a protest vote in Perth? We sit here opposite the Justin Langer stand. Do you have any tangible evidence that there is?
I don't think so. It's great to see JL out on the field before his commentary responsibilities, saying hello to the players. I know they were really pleased to see him. So, I mean, there was a lot of commentary last week, but I think everyone's had an opportunity to say their piece. And, I think the fact that the stand is named after Justin shows just the position he holds in Australian cricket, in Western Australian cricket. So it's great to see JL in such good form, and I haven't spoken to him yet today, but I'm looking forward to chatting to him. But by all accounts, he really enjoyed his day on the mic yesterday.
So there's an overarching narrative around this summer and around Australia's relationship with its team. I think the broadest PhD is, does the Australian public love its cricket team right now?
It's a really interesting question, and I think it's something that we've been thinking about and talking about a great deal. I mean, we've got a very clear vision across Australian cricket, and that's to be a sport for all that makes Australians proud, and that starts with our national team. So, I mean, I can only go on my own personal kind of experience, and certainly through the 2 years of the pandemic, the way that the Australian men's team in all formats conducted themselves was just unbelievable. We were the first team to go offshore during the pandemic, and then, I think about moments that have made us proud through the through last summer. You only think about, when we won the Ashes, the spirit within which that was played. Moments like Scott Boland's performance on his home ground. Even like the leadership of the captain when we were on the plinth and told to put the champagne down in respect of Uzi. And then you go on to Pakistan and to Sri Lanka, and I think just observing the team in Pakistan and Sri Lanka, they'd be walking around with an Australian cricket top on, and people were coming up in the streets and just go, kind of, thank you for being here. The spirit that series was played, the way they ground out the win in Pakistan. I mean, I think, but again, the spirit that it was played, just huge amount of respect between the teams. Do you remember that moment when Warner and Afridi came, like, kind of almost,
yes,
just right, and then, so I think, I've been thinking about very carefully about all of those things, and we've just got an exceptional group of young men and an exceptional group of young women representing Australia's national sport. So, I really hope that both our national teams do make Australians proud.
So Pat Cummins is a different sort of leader. He's prepared to lead on a cultural and societal front, as well as just who's going to bowl the first over from the far end tomorrow. And in modern discourse, that puts you at the centre of debate. Do you have anything tangible? Are you studying what the public relationship is with Pat Cummins, which obviously had a flashpoint around the Alinta discussion?
I mean, we do research on all aspects of Australian cricket, on the perceptions, on, we take NPS promoter scores. So we do have a read on the different attributes. I mean, I think some of Pat's comments were taken out of context, but what it shows is just the position of our national cricket teams, that people they do have very significant influence, and people listen to what they say. But I think Pat said it really well earlier in the week. They are more than just cricketers. They are people, and they're very interested in societal trends and issues, and they're allowed to have opinions. So I'm really proud of this group, and it's just very interesting the extent to which our national sport gets drawn into broader debates.
Yeah, and I think it's always been so, but I think in modern life it's really sharp. So I think the laziest phrase there is in modern debate is "go woke, go broke." is there a risk that cricket is living that cycle with a portion of the community?
I don't believe so. I think it's being true to values. Our values are very, very clear, and our purpose, our vision is very, very clear. And I mean, to boil it down, I mentioned a sport for all. We want to be the most inclusive sport that we possibly can. We want to bring people together. We want to bring communities together. I don't think you couldn't have had a better example of that than the recent Men's T20 World Cup, where we saw people from all different backgrounds, all different generations coming out and just having the most fantastic time. I certainly don't subscribe to that theory.
But fewer Australian fans than you were the mastermind of this tournament on these shores before it was delayed, is fewer Australian fans than I'm sure you would have envisaged. Like, the tournament belonged to Pakistan fans, to Indian fans. It was utterly joyful and really eye-opening, but not Australian fans. It didn't resonate in the way that I would have imagined it might have.
Yeah, again, I think that's interesting. I think in these tournaments, momentum is everything, and clearly we got off to a very slow start, but you've got to remember that the opening match against New Zealand was sold out. If we'd have had a bit of sunshine in Melbourne, that would have been sold out for the England game. So, but I think what we're seeing is that we live in, and I feel so privileged to raise my girls in one of the most culturally diverse countries in the world, and I think what we saw on display for the T20 World Cup is the future Australian cricket. How do you tap that? I think it's on a number of fronts. I've spoken to this at length before. I think it comes down to having a very clear plan, and across three things. I think it's about relationships, and I think we've struck some amazing relationships through that World Cup. I think it's about representation. So I think we need to be truly representative of the community we serve. And then it's about programs. And, I think we've had great support from a whole range of different areas. The federal government committed $4.4 million for multicultural programs as part of the T20 World Cup legacy. So I think that proves the place that cricket has in, really the role that cricket can create in bringing communities together.
And we saw a powerful demonstration of that yesterday. So we had a barefoot ceremony. The Australian players, the Test players, took a knee for the first time on Australian soil in solidarity with the West Indies. And the partnership of the day belonged to a lad who was born in Pakistan, who's forged his reputation on these shores, and a lad who was born in South Africa, who comes over with his family. So that confluence of events on day one, how clear a picture of what you would like Australian cricket to be is that?
I think each of those things, and really it's the sum of all the parts, are a great embodiment of what we want to be. We want to be the most inclusive sport that we possibly can, and a place for everyone. And, I think if you just think about the cricket that's been, the cricket that's coming up this season, the T20 World Cup we've talked about, the WBBL has just been amazing. The atmosphere of that final at North Sydney Oval, that was just a great celebration. Yesterday, we've been really true to our values with those, some of those initiatives and symbols. And we've got the Big Bash League starting the week after next. So I think it's really important that we continue to live that vision every single day.
The cooperation to take a knee with the West Indies, were you part of that discussion?
No, that was very much led by the team, but absolutely supported by myself and the rest of the team at Cricket Australia. So, but no, that was really driven by the players, and very proud of them. And I think it shows a great sign of respect towards this West Indies team.
So Pat's a different captain than the nation's had before, do you think?
I think he's his own unique style of captain, and I think through last summer, through the away tours, and with an amazing body of Test cricket coming up, I think he's really growing into the role. And I think that's evident both by his actions on the field, but also, in some of his comments leading into this series.
Cricket here in Perth, so the 10,900 yesterday. When the Wacker boutique redevelopment is finished, would this Test match be at the Wacker, or would it remain here?
think that's a hypothetical question. I mean, I think our aim is we would love to see this stadium rocking for international cricket of all forms. But, you know, going forward, that project is really taking shape, and it just gives so much more flexibility. But the plan is both for certainly for men's international cricket, for our big events, like we had a fantastic WBBL final here a couple of years ago, and then for the Big Bash League, is that we really want to see Perth Stadium rocking.
Yeah. Is it... do you think we'll see Test cricket at the WACA again? Is that in your planning, or is that a decision for later on?
It's not currently in the planning. I mean, we've just...
And on the grounds that we have, we read the piece yesterday, I think it was, that there is a determination to restore or have different characteristics to the pitch. This should be the bounciest pitch in Australia. We want spin back in Sydney. Melbourne's just going to pare back a little bit from where it was. Are you part of that discussion? Is that a sort of a true desire to give 5 different characteristics across the pitches of the country?
Yeah, well, our cricket operations experts and the curatorial staff across the country, that's obviously in their hands. But, you know, we have spoken about each of the different test venues having very much their own characteristics. And I think that's what's unique about... even though we've missed a couple of years, the feedback is it is a Western Australian pitch, and you know, I think if it wasn't, I think there'd be a lot of noise and we'd be hearing about it.
Yep. Nick, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. We'll catch up with you in Adelaide.
Fantastic. Great to chat. Thanks.
Nick Hockley, the Chief Executive of Cricket Australia. Our pre-game show is for Isuzu D-Max and MUX, and for Trojan Tools, built tough. This is SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus. That's a plus. Prospect in Perth, Australia to resume at 2 for 293. Our pre-game show is for Isuzu D-Max and MUX, and for Trojan Tools, built tough. Shortly, Usman Khawaja is going to join Adam Collins and give you the word from inside the Australian camp. But our journos are on the beat. They're here in the box. Pete Lalor, the chief cricket writer from the Australian. Hello to you, Pete.
Good morning, Gerard, Whateley.
Bharat Sundaresan from Crick Buzz. Hello, Bharat.
Good morning, guys.
We should all be football correspondents today.
What happened?
What happened?
My question for you both is, has there ever been a moment in Australian cricket where Federation Square was lit up and there were thousands of people on the street? Maybe when Australia won many of their cricket World Cups after they won the Ashes? No?
Yeah, there's been. Come on, we've got very short memories. I recall the Australians celebrating Ashes wins down in front of the Opera House not that many years ago when Chris Rogers did his fantastic dancing fresh from the nightclub. I'm not old enough to remember, but I've read about the time 250,000 people lined the streets to say goodbye to the West Indies after a tour. We get up and about, but I tell you, I was walking along the Swan River this morning, coming to the ground, and I went, "Hey, Pete!" And I looked over. There was my best mate from primary school, Dave Burgess.
Wow.
He says, "What are you doing in town?" I said, "I'm here for the cricket." He said, "Is the cricket on?"
Right.
That's a Bendigo boy.
Yep.
A Bendigo boy from my era did not know that the cricket was on 500 metres from where we were standing, and Tim Lane had the same experience with one of his old mates too. So a bit of anecdotal evidence there for you. But you can be in town and not know that the cricket's on. There are no hoardings, there's no marketing slogans, no pictures of the handsome captains on banners.
Yeah, it's not the ground campaign that you get around the Majors series, which might be a concession to what's in front of us.
Well, I think we said this yesterday, we said, like, they throw all the money at advertising the Ashes. You know, well, Ashes doesn't really need it, does it? It's a self-sourcing pudding, the Ashes. This is the pudding that needs sauce.
But what another thing I've learned by just the support around the Socceroos and the soccer in the last 2 weeks, Gerard, is that Australians love that underdog story, right? And I think one of the reasons they seem to get behind the soccer team so much is because for all other sports, they dominate. I mean, they win World Cups, they win Olympic medals. I think soccer being the biggest sport, they're like, oh, how can we call ourselves a sporting nation if we don't have a team competing repeatedly in that sport? And it's good to see them rally around the underdog story that they've never got to have in their own, maybe in the 80s when cricket was the same. Maybe that had something to do with how Australian cricket was perceived in the 90s and the excitement around it.
Well, falls off a cliff quick, though, these soccer support. I've seen it before with these World Cup campaigns. We're all in this sort of hysteria of soccer like we can be around, say, a rugby World Cup. Then there's a 4-year gap and, you know, it loses ground very quickly.
Yeah, but it is what makes it special and we crave involvement in it. I think to your point, Bharat, is there's a tyranny that's applied to the Australian team is don't lose. For God's sake, don't lose. But don't win by too much. We hate it when you thrash teams. I've never understood that. I'm not part of that. I watched Marnus Labuschagne bat yesterday, and that fills my cup. But there's a portion of the sporting public that is very uncomfortable when Australia crushes opponents.
I think the statistical evidence suggests that's not correct.
Right.
Australians love nothing more than humiliating the Pom. You know, the more we beat them, the more we show up and tune in, and we love that dominance of the English. I don't really think that is true.
So you don't think there's a queasiness around beating up on the West Indies here?
But beating up on the West Indies is different. You're right. In this context, they haven't brought the love.
Yeah, but I actually feel bad for the West Indies. I thought they started well, but I bumped into Bish yesterday sometime after the tea break, and I said it's just having one good session against a team like Australia is not good enough, right? And the soccer analogy I'll use is that's what they do, Gerard. I mean, they're a defensive bowling lineup, and against batting lineups like Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, even England, who can't soak in the pressure for 15, 20 balls these days. They'll play shots and get out. Any of those teams in those conditions, the way West Indies bowl would have been 6 for 150. But when you're up against India, Australia, New Zealand, like Marnus and Usman, they love it. They love to be there, right? He wants to keep batting. And he said that as well in the post-match when I asked him that. He's like, I knew if I could just survive that first session, there were runs to be made, and there were runs to be made. So you felt bad for the West Indies as that day wore on.
It was a good point of Marnus's, wasn't it? That if you bat in Brisbane, you know this stuff. You know that there's some cookies for you if you just do the hard work early, and you get a little bit of luck. And you know, the luck really didn't go West Indies' ways, did it? You know, if they'd had that third slip in when Marnus edged one, or if they'd hung on to this or that, you know, but they didn't create enough chances. But they were up against a perfect sort of batting unit for those conditions on a day like that, and they wore the bowling down, didn't they? In the end, they did fall off a little bit in the back end, the West Indies, I thought.
And what's ominous is I was just seeing Steve Smith out there. He's in that really happy space, which is great for Australian cricket and Australian fans. As he was walking off with his bat, he's still practicing his horizontal shots, and I've seen a lot of him in the last few days practicing. I was telling you off air yesterday, Gerard, David Warner, Marnus and Steve Smith had a bat together, and David Warner was like, look at us three batting nuffies, batting away day before the test. And this is when Steve Smith is walking in. And I was there as usual at the back, and Steve Smith very innocently looks at me and says, I just want to get better. And I said, don't worry, Steve, don't listen to him. You are on the line. I'm with you. You need to get better. Everybody needs to get better. But yeah, and I saw David Warner last evening walk up to the pitch. I'm sure he can't believe he left all those runs out there. Like, you know, everybody else has cashed in. That's the terrible bit about being an opener when you get out cheaply and then everybody else scores runs.
I was talking to the coaching staff off the record, wandering in, and it was after I'd stopped talking to Dave Burgess, and asking about Warner and where he was at, because in my mind he is batting well but just getting out.
Yeah.
And they tended to confirm that. Yeah, they're not concerned at all. But the concern is when you become concerned about not getting runs, and then it becomes a sort of self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah, you can't. I think Warner's really interesting because he's 36. We know how this goes. The eye diminishes and the reflex aren't as sharp as they once were, and there's a law of diminished returns that comes. And he knows. He's already flagged where the end point is likely to be in red ball cricket. He's still going fine in white ball cricket. And that you have to recognise the signs and then pick the moment to act. So this, I think, in my eyes, given that he hasn't India is a stretch for him, and England was a disaster for him the last time around. It's unreasonable to think that he'll be substantially better 3 or 4 years on just the age profile. So I think he's a really interesting watch. He'll play the full summer without question. There's going to be great celebration around him in Melbourne when he plays his 100th Test match, and I'm sure there'll be scores, but it's everybody's job, including his own, to measure the diminishment and to pick the moment. So you stoically go, I want this, and that's great, until you get to a point and you go, actually, no, I can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it's kind of where the two curves collide, isn't it? Where the diminishing experience batter starts to become less valuable batsman than the rising inexperienced. You risk replace the experience with the inexperience because there's more potential in it, and you've got to hit that right point, don't you? You can't do it too early, which they did with Simon Katich and Phil Hughes at that point some years ago, and I'm still angry about that.
Yeah, and you're right, and Matt Renshaw is hitting that peak. You can see him. I've seen him in the last few years of Shield cricket. Batted in the middle order, scored a lot of runs. Really worked on his game against the spin. Now he's back at the top of the order, scoring runs, looking good. You want to pick someone, like you said, Pete, when he's on the rise, or when he's ready. 6 months from now, who knows?
And that's the career trajectory you like, isn't it? Where you get a taste of it early, and then you get sent back into the naughty corner because you've got all these faults, and go and correct them and come back when you're ready.
Yeah. I mean, all I don't want from Matt Renshaw, I hope he has everything else sorted when he goes back to India. We don't want him running off when a wicket falls like he did in Pune.
Yes. Rather memorably. What does the passage of our day hold, do you think, Bharat?
Look, I think if I was West Indies, they have no option. They can't be defensive this morning. They have the new ball with them, 8 overs old. They have to attack in the first half an hour, 40 minutes. If they get wickets, they are in the game. If they don't get wickets, Australia are going to pile it on. I just have this sneaky feeling. I've had this before the test. Cam Green made in test done. Perth. One Western Australian legend has been spoken of a lot before this test. I think we'll have a new Western Australian legend emerging.
What's in store for us, Pete?
Yeah, a lot of runs and a declaration based on time, but it's a curious game, and you say that people want competition, so it would be a good thing if a couple of wickets fell early, wouldn't it?
Let's see.
The game. I don't really want to see that. And I say that as a...
Yeah. I'm here for a Smith century, and I'm all in on the Green idea. They're going to have to take a couple of wickets early for there to be time for Green to do that. I'm totally down with that.
That'd be fun, wouldn't it? Cameron Green at home.
And he deserves it as well. I mean, he's batting so well.
It's his second sort of... he's only played one first-class game at this stadium. Isn't that extraordinary? And it's his first test at this stadium.
It's remarkable. All right, see you both during the day. Peter Lalor, Chief Cricket Writer with the Australian. Bharat Sundaresan from Crickbuzz, part of our call team for Bundaberg Ginger Beer. Usman Khawaja is going to join us next.
This time off the back foot, placing it to deep point and bringing up his half-century. The Queensland pair have been right on top since lunch. And Khawaja's fabulous 2022 continues.
953 runs at 95.3 in a renaissance that Australian cricket has rarely seen. Usman Khawaja. Our pre-game show is for Isuzu D-Max and MUX and for Trojan Tools. Built tough. The pitch has been prepared for the day's play. Adam Collins is downstairs. He's on the turf here at Perth Stadium with Usman Khawaja, thanks to Bundaberg Ginger Beer.
G'day, Usman. Thanks for joining SEN Cricket. A bit overcast, a little bit of rain in the air this morning, but 24 hours ago, beautiful day, and you picked up where you left off throughout 2022, scoring runs, opening the batting. You must be loving this revival.
I've been enjoying my cricket for a while, even since I last got dropped from the Australian cricket team. I went back and played for Queensland. I was really enjoying that time, and I guess, to be back here, it's been fun. I was scoring obviously a few runs, but we've been playing some really good cricket too and winning lots of games, and we're number one team in the world. It always helps.
It looked like one of those days where it wasn't a morning to be flashy. You had to earn the right to get in. Is that how you interpreted it from out in the middle?
Yeah, it sucks as a batsman because you want to just score runs and you want to do it freely. But sometimes you have to put your pride and ego out of the way, and me and Marnus did that pretty much for the whole first session. It got a little bit easier second session, but they still bowled relatively well, and then obviously I missed out to play and to bat in that last session, and Marnus did, and he certainly cashed in. That was the perfect day of cricket, almost as a batting unit.
Yeah, an 8th score above 50 for Australia this year, including 4 tons. And you're out to Kyle Mayers. Lovely piece of bowling from him, but I suppose it's proof there's still room in the modern game for an old-fashioned medium pacer.
Yeah, it felt like I was playing county cricket, to be honest. It's the old dibbly dobblers. He bowled all right most of that day, and even to Marnus early on, and then later on, he was not one we were expecting to face a lot, but he bowled out there yesterday. So, you always got to be wary of everyone in Test cricket.
For Marnus, that's the 3rd time he's made 100 against the side in the first Test innings he's played against them. And he's done it a couple of times on the first day of the Australian summer as well. He clearly loves taking responsibility for the situation.
Yeah, look, he's had, he obviously played a little bit with us in Queensland and missed out a few times. So you could almost say he was due the way Marnus plays. He's a terrific player. You know he's going to score runs at some stage. So it was great to see. He batted beautifully yesterday. Nice to see a smile on his face, and he deserves it because he works extremely hard.
You've been playing cricket with Steve Smith, well, since you were kids in New South Wales. He looks so at ease, free, uncomplicated at the moment, and it's really paying off in the middle.
Yeah, I mean, mentally, even before the start of the match, you could just tell that he was really comfortable with how he was batting. And I don't know what happens in the mind of Steve Smith. He is obviously, in my opinion, the best Test cricketer I've played with. But I guess he looked really comfortable before coming out in this game. When you see that Steve Smith, you almost know that he's going to score runs. It's a weird thing. I can't say that for many players because this game is bloody tough. But when Smithy's feeling really good before a game, you can almost lock him in.
And from a technical perspective, give us a bit of an insight to how difficult it is making an adjustment like his so deep into his career. I mean, he looks very different when he sets up side on.
It does look a little bit different, but I mean, Smudge has always been really good at tinkering, changing small things. Marnus is very similar in a lot of respects, so I think these guys are used to doing that. So for them, it's not as big of an adjustment.
Pat, before the test, was zooming out a little bit, bigger picture, seeing this as a 15-test match run-up. Now, I know you won't get too far ahead of yourself, but for that generation of players, what's on the line? A Test summer at home, then to India, maybe the World Test Championship final and the Ashes in England. It could define your generation.
Look, yes, we don't look I personally don't look too far ahead because it's always one innings after next, fielding, batting.
Sure.
It's pretty much like that. But at the same time, it'd be lying if we didn't all as a team have one eye on the bigger picture. And I think you kind of do to some respect. So you got to give it credit where it is and understand where the team's trying to head and then try and look in space. But 100%, if we can obviously do really well this summer, play well in India, big series for us. Get to the World Test Championship, which is massive. We missed out last time. Yeah, we know why. And then there's a massive Ashes series coming up too, where last time we retained it and we got so close to actually winning that Ashes. I think a lot of the boys still have the hunger to do that.
Just going back to before the game yesterday, there was the barefoot circle and taking a knee in a Test match for the first time. I suppose that was a good chance for your side to show its values too.
100%, and we're big on equality, and I think for us as a team, we're certainly heading in a direction that I'm very proud of. I think slow baby steps. Look, I think as a society we're doing the same, so it's really nice to see. Us as players, we know we have a lot of responsibility. We know we have a lot of kids and people out there who look up to us. So I think if we're comfortable with our values and what we believe in, hopefully they can respect that too.
Of course, a lot of kids looking up to the Socceroos at the moment as well after their stunning victory last night. I know you weren't able to stay up for it, but watching the highlights this morning, how exciting.
Yeah, it was awesome. I watched that goal. It's a pretty good goal too. I thought, oh, no, he's cooked it, and then put out that right foot. So, no, it's great to see. Obviously, the whole of Australia behind the Socceroos. We're always the underdogs every time we go to the World Cup, and we know it. So, to play the way we did, particularly after France lost to Tunisia. Yeah, so it was really good to see. We're all behind the boys.
Usman Khawaja, it's been a joy tracing your 2022 around the world on SEN Test cricket. Good luck for the rest of the summer.
Cheers, thank you.
Adam Collins downstairs with Usman Khawaja ahead of day 2 here in Perth. 2 for 293, the first ball, about 20 minutes away. We'll have it for you all on SEN Cricket. Colo in the box next. Our local knowledge throughout the test. Brad Hogg will paint the picture for what's ahead.
Hogg with me, part of our cool team for Bundaberg Ginger Beer. Hoggy, you've got our local knowledge. I want to talk initially about your wonderful time zone. I read last night that 20% of the world's population lives on this time zone, which meant we were all able to tune in and watch the Socceroos, while on the East Coast it was the middle of the night. How good's that?
Yeah, well, a lot of people were doing that, but I was organising myself last night, trying to do a bit of work around the house because my wife's got a bit of a do on last night. She on the weekend, she invites 40 women around to the house.
Right.
Just for a Christmas special, so I've got to make sure I get a few things up and running. So I was doing a little bit of work around the house. I didn't even watch the soccer, sorry.
Sounds like the best ticket in town. The West Indies this morning will have a chance to reset with Australia 2 for 293. Labuschagne there on 154, Smith on 59. We spoke yesterday about just how many balls the Australians were able to leave in the first session and the middle session as well. The Windies have got to get it right. The second new ball's only 8 overs old.
Yeah, I was looking at an article today where Simmons, the coach, said he thought the West Indies bowled reasonably well yesterday. I just felt that their plans weren't right. They went too early with the short pitch bowling from Joseph out, the big guns here of Australia. If you get through that top four, all of a sudden that middle order's under pressure. They don't really get put under pressure that much, so you want to see them stand up. The conditions were conducive for them to bowl well. They didn't get the ball in the right areas enough. They didn't attack the off stump enough. They were just too wide and let Australia take control in that final session without putting too much pressure in the first two sessions.
Out there before the Usman Khawaja took a look at the pitch. It looks very different when it's gloomy overhead. Yeah. We had a little bit of rain earlier, although that won't affect the day's play, I don't expect. But there'll be something there early on, especially if they can get it right. And there is enough grass cover to help the second new ball.
Yeah, well, it's overcast conditions, so hopefully the ball will swing a little bit more today. And that would be good because the new ball that the West Indies have got now will, if they get it in the right areas, they can get a couple of breakthroughs here and not let the game meander on. It sounds as though Simmons, in that little statement that he said, look, if they get 400, 450, we're still in the game. Hopefully we can get them out for there. It's all about hope. There's no faith. There's no ascendancy in their mindset. They feel as though they're already beaten against this dominant Australian team because they're worried about their pace attack and so forth. What they've got to do is come out here and think, right, the conditions are conducive. We didn't get the ball in the right areas enough yesterday. There's going to be more movement this morning, and we've got a chance of bowling Australia out for 350 where we're at now, or just short of 400 if we get it in the right areas.
Yeah, talking about 400, 450, that is a little bit defeatist when this might be their last best chance, right, with conditions that will be favourable for a period of time. Mentioned the second new ball already. I assume Kyle Mayers will have a bit of a say as well. Usman Khawaja, in the interview with him before, reflecting on the fact that he felt like a county cricket bowler when running into him, but sometimes that's exactly what you need in conditions like this.
Oh, exactly right. We saw yesterday with that wicket that he got of Usman Khawaja. Why wouldn't you start with him with the new ball, just see what he's got on that good area? Because he was getting the ball to seam off that good length. Yes, you have someone swinging the ball out the other end like a Kemar Roach or Sears, but at the end of the day, you've got to change things up, but you've got to make calculated changes, and that would have been a good calculated change. Just don't bowl in that one over at the end of the night, because all of a sudden he's trying to do too much, trying to buy a wicket out that final hurdle. If he had a good 5 overs with that new ball at the back end, then he could have been able to build up a little bit of pressure, attack that good length, and he might have been able to get either Labuschagne or Smith, and all of a sudden they've got a fresh batsman here today on a new day.
Yeah, sure. And from that Australian perspective, Smith resuming on 59. I loved hearing Usman Khawaja talk about his old mate there, saying, I'm never going to understand him. But what he does understand is that whatever he's been tweaking with his technique, and it's reflected an ease above the shoulders as well. There was none of the gesticulations yesterday. There was none of the sort of no run and thrusting the bat at the bowler and all of that. It looks uncomplicated, and it's working for him.
Yeah, definitely. I think sometimes, and that's a good thing about both Labuschagne and Steve Smith. They're able to tinker with their games. They're always looking to improve. And that's why they're the best in the business, because they're just not comfortable with what they've achieved already.
they want to achieve a lot more. And the way to achieve a lot more is to keep studying your game and keep improving on it. And sometimes I've talked to some old bowlers, Bruce Reid, for example. He tinkered with his action, and then out the back end, he just finished with the way that the action was at the start of his career. So he went through all those changes trying to improve his game. And it's like Steve Smith and Labuschagne. They're just tinkering, trying to improve. And when you tinker and improve as well, it's very hard for an opposition bowling attack to keep planning against those types of batters, because they've made a change. All of a sudden, my game plan, I have to change as well to the way that they've tinkered their technique out the other end.
And if they are going to not only be successful this summer, but do well in India, World Test Championship, the Ashes next year too in England, and Pat Cummins spoke at length about that a couple of days ago, Khawaja likewise before, they'll need that engine room firing, and Smith's a big part of that, and he hasn't reached those heights in the last couple of years, so he's finding form at the perfect time from a team perspective.
Oh, definitely. And, you know, we've got a small problem with David Warner out the top. I don't want to harp on that too much, because I want him to finish his career when he wants to finish it. I don't want him to be dropped from the team, because he doesn't really deserve that with the performances that he's put on the board. So it's really good that engine room is standing up and delivering. And they're delivering out the right time. And at the end of the day, it's just great to see their passion that they want to win this World Test Championship. All of a sudden, that baggy green means has been taken to a new level. They want to play for Australia. They want to play Test cricket, and that's what we want. We want players all around the world striving to participate in this game, because it's the best format of cricket. It tests you in everything, endurance, mentally, and it just gives so much. It's such an entertaining game, so I'm really pleased. And the other thing is, they've stood up and accepted that they weren't switched on. They didn't really think that the World Test Championship in that first year was that important, and now they realise that they let something slip, and they've just turned it around and they've owned their mistake, and that's a good sign for this team.
Nicely put, Brad Hogg. We're going to go to a break. Our apparel partner is Ringers Western. Whether it's in the paddock or the pub, Ringers Western has the kit to keep you cool this summer. We'll speak to you throughout the day, Brad Hogg. SEN Test Cricket is for Host Plus. That's a plus. On the other side of the break, Gerard Whateley with the first ball of day 2.
Ball-winning team with MEGT, Australia's apprenticeship and employment experts. Visit MEGT.com.au today.
Play poised to begin on day 2 in Perth, Australia. 2 for 293. Steve Smith is on 59. He will have the strike. Marnus Labuschagne is 154. Kemar Roach is bowling from the members' end. He sent down 18 overs yesterday, 3 maidens, none for 59. Gerard Whateley and Simon Katich with you for the start of play. Damian Fleming as well. And Kemar Roach's 13-year quest for a wicket on these shores resumes. He's in and he bowls to Smith, who cuts it a wide one and takes runs immediately through cover. It's a long chase in the deep. They have 2 and just a leg stretcher as Seals gets around to do the fielding. 2 for Smith. He's immediately on to 61. Simon Flem, welcome back.
Thanks, Gerard.
Morning, Gerard.
Nice start for Smithy. Short, wide one, outside off stump, a bit of a sider.
Gets himself underway. 3 slips in place. Roach over the wicket. Smith almost chopped it on. Inside edge. Devilishly close to the off stump. Survives.
Got a little bit lucky there, Steve Smith. Wasn't far away from the stumps. But I watched the West Indies run out onto the field today, and there was a fair bit of energy, particularly from Jason Holder. He was one of the first out there, young Jaden Seals. So hopefully they've gone away overnight, had a bit of a chat from a team perspective, and come back re-energised today to try and make amends and get their lengths right.
Roach stretches out and he bowls to Smith. He tucks him to the leg, no run to the short mid-wicket. So first, second and fourth slip, there's a deep backward point. Cover, mid-off, mid-on, a short mid-wicket and a fine leg.
I thought Roach was probably the unluckiest of the West Indian bowlers. There was probably a dozen outside edges and plain misses, but they were all very full deliveries. So luck can change, can't it, day by day?
Cooler conditions Heavy cloud overhead. Roach bowls to Smith, who leaves planting the front foot well down the pitch and watching it go by.
Yeah, look, it's hard to judge him on yesterday because it could have easily been a different story for him at different times, where he did beat the bat, as you say, Flem. I think the thing that's holding him back in these conditions is the fact that he's lost all that airspeed. I mean, he was rapid when he first started. Now he's...
Well, you faced him, didn't you?
Yeah, and he's now sort of in the mid to high 120s at best. I mean, there's a couple yesterday maybe at 131 with a new ball, but it's a lot slower.
Smith faces up and he leaves Roach outside the off stump.
Yeah, every now and again too, like that delivery there, he normally releases about 12 o'clock. He used to angle the ball in mainly to right-handers, and that's where you get your bounce. But every now and again, like that one there, it was a bit of a round arm.
And there was a couple yesterday that probably, particularly Labuschagne got beaten on the outside, which he probably knew he had to play because he's always thinking the ball's coming back into the stumps. And that's the ball that probably is going to pose these two the most problems, is the one that sort of stands up and leaves them.
Smith twitches and flexes and turns through mid-wicket crisply. Got it past Chase in close, and it is quite the pursuit. It'll be pulled up a step inside the boundary. They have 3 and will come for 4 on the throw. Labuschagne to the danger end, had to scurry late, as it was a powerful throw in from the deep, and Roach was up over the stumps. Labuschagne gets there. He'll be breathing heavily after it. Smith with the all-run 4. He's 65. 2 for 299 at the end of the first over for GWM. Ute scoreboard, GWM go with more.
Labuschagne will be blowing, but once again there, it's a great example. There's not a lot of support to the throwing because that's happened a couple of times even yesterday where there was a chance there for mid-on who should have got across to help out with the cutout throw, and that potentially meant that the 4th run might have been stopped. But it's such a long throw from out at deep mid-wicket. It looks like it's probably almost about 80-plus metres. So it's too far to get it in quickly.
For the listeners that haven't been here, I mean, these are as big a boundaries as we'll see in the world. So the cut-off throw has to come in play. So you got to be proactive in the field.
Legs up. Yeah, they sort of instinctively feel even deeper than the MCG. They won't be. I imagine they are identical dimensions. A long way off, though. Marnus Labuschagne, he's got the sleeveless cable sweater as he resumes on 154. Jason Holder in from the Langer end to him. It's a gentle start, and it's nudged away to points. A run taken to tick it over. And the 300 up for Australia. It comes the first ball of the 92nd over.
I'm not sure what you think, Flem, but I'm not sure when you start the day with a second new ball that's only 8 overs old, you need to have a deep point. It's almost giving the bowler a bit too much leeway. I'd rather see them have that fielder up and say, right, you can't just rotate the strike when you want easily on the offside.
Well, we wrapped them up early yesterday with their field placements. They had catches, not defending outfielders.
Holder bowls down the leg side. A little waft at it, but it kept getting away.
So it's really for a bad ball. You talked about in the pre-match about the first session yesterday, but it's the same here. Who cares if they get the opportunity to score a little bit quickly against the new ball, because it may bring wickets. What they can't afford to do is Australia be 2 down after an hour.
Holder bowling right arm over the wicket to Steve Smith, who's in behind defending. There was a twitch for the thought of a run, but Brathwaite is in close at cover.
Yeah, it'll be like watching 2 different games this Test match, because I think we're seeing here both these bowlers, the quality bowlers, but they're only hitting the mid-120s, whereas when the Australians get that ball in their hand, the new ball, it'll be flying through at probably 140k plus, and the West Indian top order will be under some pressure. We're not quite seeing these two have to make those quick decisions because they've got time against these two at the moment.
Smith's on 65, and he does seem like he's got all the time in the world. Holder bowls to him, and Smith leaves.
Yeah, it was really that first spell from Joseph. He was shaking up the Australians with their pace, but the Aussies have got 3 of those. So, sorry, 4, because Green's as quick and bouncy as... all the other guys.
Well, the other thing that stands out, all 4 of them are tall men. So on this sort of track where they hit the length, the West Indian batsmen are going to get the questions asked of controlling their hands, particularly on and around that off stump, and that's what these 2 have done so well.
Holder to Smith, drops it to the leg side, but there's no run to be had.
Just that X factor of Mitchell Starc, a left armour who I thought in the one-day series he was back, baby. And you can see it in his momentum and his run-up. And, wow, from the first ball, you're going, why didn't he get the new ball in the T20 World Cup?
Yes. I was cursing the TV when I was watching him at the Gabba and he didn't bowl that new ball and against Ireland. And I'm thinking, what is going on here?
Yeah.
He was bowling beautifully.
Last ball of the second over. Smith will see it from Holder, and he's letting it go by.
Over.
2 for 308 after a couple of overs of the day's play. The GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
SEN and Bing Lee are teaming up this summer to bring you live coverage of the Test cricket.
I've seen better batters in a fish and chip shop.
He couldn't hit the water if he fell out of a boat. An unbeatable partnership. Bing Lee, proud partner of SEN's Test cricket coverage.
From cricket to NBL, A-League to horse racing. For all the big moments, expert commentary and the latest breaking news, when it happens in sport, SEN has you covered. Find your channel on the SEN app today.
The opening session of day 2 for MEGT, Australia's apprenticeship and employment experts. Labuschagne 155, seen 1 ball, added a single from it. 2 slips and a gully, or maybe first, second and fourth slip. And the deep point stays in. Kemar Roach over the wicket bowls. Labuschagne edging into his pads. It trickles away to the keeper.
Might have been a lick.
Not a true lick that's hit at 145 Ks and there's a bit of rubbing and soreness going on, but that's the length. I mean, it's probably just needs to maybe be even a foot fuller than that, but just caught Labuschagne on the crease a little bit there, inside edge.
You can hear Labuschagne tapping away. Now lifts the bat, Roach bowls to him. He's driving, knocked down by Roach. No run. There's lots of analytics arrived the morning after. I know you'll share a little bit, Simon, around Labuschagne's innings and what Trent Copeland has been doing. Fox had do you have the sense that Labuschagne is a lucky batter? That he gets dropped routinely, it feels. He got dropped by Holder in second slip yesterday, and that's not to mention the edge through third slip and the ball out into the deep, which just missed Chanderpaul by a fraction. Labuschagne is nibbling the ball wide of gully and pinching a run to go at 156. So the measurement's been made since July 2019. And Labuschagne has been dropped on 16 occasions and caught on 20 occasions. So dropped almost as often as he has been caught. The luckiest batter over that period of time. Ben Stokes has been dropped 21 times. Karunaratne of Sri Lanka's dropped 15 times. Blackwood from the West Indies 14 times. Rahane from India 13 times. So Labuschagne's third on the lucky stripe since July 2019.
It begs the question, is the modern fielding up to the same standard as it needs to be? Because that's a lot of drop catches across the board.
Smith, just fended the ball to what would have been silly point, a rising delivery, got in behind it, up off the slice of the bat momentarily in the air. They take a run. Smith is 66. It's 2 for 302.
He did get squared up there, Smithy. He's kept, obviously, the pre-match talking about keeping side on, particularly to the shorter delivery. Yeah, I mean, that's they're interesting stats, but you can't control them, can you? From a batting perspective, you can just cash in when you get the opportunity.
Labuschagne is doing that. Roach bowls to him. He swings across the line, an under edge down to fine leg, so not where it was intended to be. Labuschagne moves to 157, and the partnership has gone through 150.
Look, I think you definitely need some luck when you bat in the top order, particularly batting at number 3. And yesterday, whilst there wasn't a huge amount in the wicket early, when they did get the length right, it posed enough problems that you are going to not get everything 100% right from a technical perspective, and there was a few times there where he did get away with a couple.
Roach hurries in and bowls to Smith, who defends from the pads. End of the over. We'll pick that up with Simon Katich and Damian Fleming next. 2 for 303. Our experts for Anaconda hit summer for 6 with Anaconda's 10% price beat guarantee.
The GWM Ute is up for the challenge. Born tough and built smart to give you more. More features, reliability, comfort and safety for less. GWM Ute. Go with more.
Stuff for your face and body? It's men's skincare with a purpose. Top quality Aussie-made grooming and skincare to help guys look and feel great with no hassles. Plus, Stuff is helping mental health too. Find Stuff at Woolworths or visit websiteofstuff.com.
SEN Test cricket for Host Plus, that's a plus. 152 run stand between these two in the middle. Labuschagne's on 157. Holder is in and bowls to him, and he's leaning forward and defending.
Yeah, just going back to that conversation, I mean, watching the warm-ups today, I didn't see a lot of the Australians doing much from a fielding perspective, but also understand that because they expect to be batting for the bulk of today. So that's totally understandable, not an issue. And as I mentioned earlier, I just wonder whether the standards of the modern fieldsmen across the world, that is, for all these drop catches going down, whether it's slip catching or whether it's, you know, just normal field catching, whether that's sort of dropped a little bit.
Holder bowls. Labuschagne raises the bat to a rising delivery.
And the reason I say that is because the modern schedule is so jam-packed with so many different formats, potentially that's one area of the game where players are having to take, you know, some shortcuts because they're just physically exhausted from travelling and playing and doing that all the time.
Would the strength and conditioning have a say in that as well?
Potentially.
I'm thinking yes.
So that the fielding is certainly more athletic, but whether the catching is as sharp. Labuschagne plays off his hip down to fine leg and collects a single.
The fielding on the boundary has gone to a level I never thought I'd see, but maybe the catching in the ring, the cutting off of runs in the ring, I don't think's any higher than 20 years ago.
Oh, there's no doubt in the white ball game it's gone to a completely different level because of the skills that are getting practiced day in, day out, and the amount of T20 cricket they're playing on, you know, training on the fence and flicking balls back and all that. But interestingly, when we were in Pakistan for that test series, there were a number of catches went down.
Smith faces Holder and he runs the ball down through gully. Chanderpaul's got some ground to cover in the deep. He does well, keeps it to 1.
And that was off Mitchell Swepson. And he had a pretty good start to his test career. He could have had 2 or 3 wickets there and end up with a none for, I think, in that first innings in Karachi. And there were a number put down in close. And there's that aspect of the game as well, which is a specialist skill. You know, is that being practiced enough? Then the slips catching. I mean, there was, I think when we were going through the Ashes, England had had a horrible record with their catching in the slips over a period of time at one point. And that's another area of the game which is so crucial to getting on a run and knocking teams over. When you're taking all your catches, you're really putting teams under pressure.
The deep square has gone back. So deep point, deep square leg with Labuschagne facing up to Holder. And he was wafting at the short ball, which passes the grill. There's a leg slip as well. It's interesting to have a little dash at that, given what they've just done with the field.
He can't not, though. We talked about it, didn't we? He's not allergic to it.
So he's Bart Simpson with the electrified cupcake.
There was a stat on him yesterday, 24%. He's the most likely out of all the Australian batting to take on the short ball. Right. He takes it on the most.
I wonder if Holder will pitch it in short again. He does. Yep. Labuschagne goes after it and he pierces the gap. He runs it away from Seals, who'll overhaul it with a dive right at the end. Good piece of play. They'll get 3 as a result. But again, no one on the relay throw, which is if Simon Katich was in the fielding camp, that message would be out there right now. 3 to finish the over, 5 from it, 2 for 308. The GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
Anaconda's massive Black Friday sale is on now. Huge savings on camping gear, bikes, kayaks, fishing gear, clothing, footwear and more. Some exclusions apply. Up to 50% off Black Friday sale on now at Anaconda. Play more and pay less. Anaconda!
Which oil keeps your business moving? Farmers and fleet managers, they know. Construction crews and car mechanics, They know, and you know. Valvoline, the original engine oil.
SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus, the industry super fund for all Australians. Labuschagne is 161, Smith is 67. It's a sprightly start, 2 for 308. And Kemar Roach has 2 in the deep on the leg side as well. So Labuschagne readies himself. And he's defending the ball almost the tip and run, but Brathwaite was quickly off the mark at mid-off a dot. Compulsive hooking, Simon.
It is.
Who did you play with someone who was a compulsive hooker? So growing up, Andrew Hilditch was the compulsive hooker, wasn't he?
Correct. I remember hearing Richie commentating on him. I think it was at Lord's, wasn't it? When he said something like, "Oh no, not again."
I remember when we were, I reckon, probably grade 3, and we were allowed to listen to the first session of the Gabba test to start the summer, and Hilditch got out hooking. There's a vivid memory of filming. Labuschagne turns from his pads out to one of the deep fielders on the leg side. A little fumble from Chanderpaul, but a single taken, 162 on the board.
Yeah, look, I think in our era, a lot of the guys took it on. I mean, obviously, Ricky was renowned. That was his probably trademark pull shot, hook shot. A lot of the batsmen did, but I wouldn't say they were compulsive because they played it and practiced it. I mean, back in the day, Rod Marsh had the bouncer week where everyone came in from around the country trying to knock all the young batsmen's head off.
Right.
And you had to take it on. If you didn't survive it or know how to play it, you were probably going to struggle to play first-class cricket in Australia. So it was game on. So it was a big part of batting in Australian conditions and having a weapon to say, no, you can't bowl there to me. And
Gully's gone to cover. Roach bowls to Smith, defending down the line of the onside.
Yeah, I don't think there was anyone, I'd say, that got out to it as much as someone like Andrew Hilditch did in the manner he did.
Roach is in his 21st over, 3 maidens, none for 68. Trying to end this partnership, which really does threaten. Smith has the strike. He's forward defending to cover. No run. What are we learning about Smith, Simon, and the work that he's done around his technique and how he presents into this summer?
Yeah, there was a really good graphic that Copes put together yesterday on the coverage, just showing the preliminary movement and where Steve Smith's right foot, his back foot, ends up on the crease and in what line, which was around off stump.
Smith has the strike. Roach bowls to him. He drives. Roach did well. Threw down the left hand and saved a boundary. That was magnificently struck for nothing.
So the start of it was the guard. And the guard, I think, previously he'd been on sort of leg stump. And because he was moving so far, he was ending outside off stump, as we've known for the last few years. But yesterday, he was starting on middle stump and probably only a slight preliminary movement going across to off. So that was his back foot. But then what also was happening was he was a lot more square on with his shoulders and hips.
Smith beaten on the last ball of the over from Roach. That had some lovely movements past the outside edge. 2 for 309, the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
The GWM Ute is up for the challenge. Born tough and built smart to give you more. More features, reliability, comfort and safety for less. GWM Ute. Go with more.
SEN and Bing Lee are teaming up this summer to bring you live coverage of the Test cricket.
Mum, was that a golden duck or a duck?
I don't know, but I think picking duck for tea.
An unbeatable partnership. Bing Lee, proud partner of SEN's Test cricket coverage.
SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus. That's a plus. 2 for 309. Labuschagne 162. Smith 67. Simon Katich mid-conversation telling you about the changes in the Smith technique. Labuschagne's on strike. 2 slips, leg slip, fine leg, deep square, deep points. It's a short ball attack, you would imagine. Holder pitches it up and beats the outside edge. That's nice ball.
Yeah, so going back to Smith, so part of it was where he was ending up. So he's in a position where he was probably, his head was, an eye line was over off stump rather than being further outside the line. And what that does is it generally gives you a better idea where the top of your off stump is when you're upright and you're not falling across your stumps as much. So he looks like he's in a really good position there, lining the ball up. But then also what that does is it allows him to know, when your eye line starts getting outside off stump, you start thinking that's where your off stump is.
Holder pitches it right up to Labuschagne, who lets it go this time.
And so you start playing at balls that are potentially at 4th and 5th stump line. So it just looks like he's in a position where he seems really balanced. His eyes were square. The other part of it was his hips were square. And in the past, the comparison that was made was his hips were a lot more open. And what that does is it means that by the time the ball comes, if your hips are already opened up, you've already generated some of that power through the bottom half of your body through the ball before it's actually arrived.
Labuschagne leaves again.
And when you want to hit the ball powerfully, it's a combination of everything working in sync. Obviously, your footwork, getting in a good position, hips waiting for the ball to come, and then once they drive through the ball, a bit like a golf swing, your hands are then making that with your hips all in sync. And that's what it looked like yesterday with some of the clips through mid-wicket, his cover drives. It just looks like his hips and his hands are working together in sync, and that's what's giving him so much power and so much options around the ground.
Holder over the wicket, bowls to Labuschagne, and again, untempted.
And in the modern game, a lot of the boys now in T20 cricket are practicing clearing that front leg, and you see it in the Big Bash. So for a right-handed batsman, that means their left foot starts clearing towards the leg side, and as a result of that left hip opening up, it takes the left shoulder with it because your body is basically aligned that way, and you can't. The only way around it is a bit like a golf swing, is you can open up your front foot, but then you actually twist your body around to be square on, so your top half's still coiled to be able to powerfully strike the ball when it comes to the point of contact.
It's good over from Holder. He bowls straight this time. He's turned a leg easily by Labuschagne. 2 for 310.
So the modern power hitter has sort of countered opening up their front hip and shoulder and leg by actually then realigning their top half to still be a bit like a golf swing as you are standing there waiting to swing and hit through the ball. So there's always these little tricks that the players will keep tinkering with and finding out what works for them. But interesting talking to Copes about it was that he'd spoken to Smithy prior to the T20s and felt that Smithy was trying to get back in the T20 team and find his power, started doing that for T20 cricket, and now it's evolved to this.
Holder, the last ball of the over to Smith, who's on the back foot defending. One from it, 2 for 310 on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more.
SEN and Bing Lee are teaming up this summer to bring you live coverage of the Test cricket.
I've seen better batters in a fish and chip shop.
He couldn't hit the water if he fell out of a boat.
An unbeatable partnership. Bing Lee, proud partner of SEN's Test cricket coverage.
From cricket to NBL, A-League to horse racing. For all the big moments, expert commentary and the latest breaking news, when it happens in sport, SEN has you covered. Find your channel on the SEN app today.
The first session of play for MEGT. Build your best workforce with MEGT.com.au. Kyle Mayers has been brought into the attack at the members' end, replacing Kemar Roach. So Mayers, 11 overs, 2 maidens, 1 for 24. In the experts' chair for Anaconda, hit Summer for 6 with Anaconda's 10% price beat guarantee. Brad Hogg joins Simon Katich. Hello, Hoggy.
G'day, guys. How are you? I was enjoying that, Kat.
Keep going with that. I'm fascinated by the idea that something that Smith thought might help him in the shortest format is actually something that he really likes for Test cricket, and that's what we're seeing at the moment. Labuschagne's on 163. Mayers begins wide. That's well wide and called as such.
What I will say is that he has said in the last few weeks that it's something he's been tinkering with for 12 months, his Test game, with his hands and his footwork and all of that. And it's always been a feel thing for Steve Smith because he's never had the conventional technique, really. But I think with this, it might have been a situation where he's felt so good in being able to access both sides of the field and he's felt the power that he's realised that this is what he can adapt to Test cricket as well.
Mayers to Labuschagne. Oh, pulls inside edge, past the stump, streaky boundary. He's very lucky to survive that, Marnus. The boundary for Rotoflex by Blunston. It wasn't there to pull, and he's gone ever so close to dragging it on.
I just think that's missed by a bee sting, that.
Well, the ball, I think, is hit behind the off stump on the turf.
Yep.
It's just missed a coat of varnish there.
Mayers, who created trouble all yesterday, bowls, and Labuschagne leaves. We had Usman Khawaja with us, spoke to Colo, and he used my favourite phrase in cricket, is dibbly-dobblies. Said, man, it was like playing county cricket. Mayers is bowling dibbly-dobblies. And whenever I think of Andrew McDonald as a cricketer, all I can think of is dibbly-dobblies, which might do the Australian coach a disservice, but that's what he bowled.
He did, but I tell you what, he used to knock some good players over, Macca.
And Mayers is trying to do that. Labuschagne pulls a little bit more conviction about it as he drags it down to fine leg and goes to 168.
Well, it just goes to show, in certain conditions, you don't actually have to bowl at 140k plus, because in England, with the ball moving around or a bit of grass on the wicket like there was yesterday and today, there's not always, that thing that you have to run in quick and knock blokes over with pace. There's certain conditions that suit guys that bowl at 120, and Mayers was that yesterday.
Smith has the strike. He's on 67. He faces up to Mayers and he leaves outside the off stump.
Just going back to Steve Smith and players clearing that front leg, and every now and then they get caught front on and they become bigger targets as well, and that's probably why we're seeing a few players get hit in the head a lot more during this decade of cricket than previous decades of cricket. So the more side on you are, the smaller target you are, and it's harder for the bowler to really test you with that short one.
Smith comes forward and gets beaten past the outside edge. So again, it's Mayers who's asking the best questions of the morning.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And the other part of the modern game, which I think plays a part in this, is that players want to access the ball to hit it and hit it powerfully because they're practicing for T20 and stuff like that. So they're generally staying a lot more leg side of the ball. Whereas I guess previous generations, a lot of it was about getting inside the line of the ball or getting into line with ball, and you had options both sides. So if you get closed off one way...
Last ball of the over, Smith drops it to the leg side. I'll pick that up in a moment, Simon. It's 2 for 316 on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
The GWM Ute is up for the challenge. Born tough and built smart to give you more. More features, reliability, comfort and safety for less. GWM Ute. Go with more.
SEN and Bing Lee are teaming up this summer to bring you live coverage of the Test cricket.
Mum, was that a golden duck or a duck?
I don't know, but I think picking duck for tea.
An unbeatable partnership. Bing Lee, proud partner of SEN's Test cricket coverage.
2 for 316 SEN Test cricket for Host Plus. That's a plus. Jason Holder is bowling from the Langer stand end. He's bowled 19 overs, 6 maidens, none for 36. Steve Smith is on, Marnus Labuschagne's on strike on 168 and he's leaving outside the off stump. Cat?
Yeah, so when a bowler knows that a batsman is just staying leg side of the ball and he wants to target him in the ribs or at the head, it's a lot easier for him to line that ball up and just keep peppering that line, knowing that the batsman's staying on that sort of guard or staying leg side of the ball, whereas guys that move around the crease and get inside the line or then stay still, and it's harder for bowlers to then target them with that short ball or put them under pressure that way.
Holder in and bowls to Labuschagne, who cuts very close to the body. Myers flies away in slip, but he can't haul it in. It runs down for a boundary. Rotaflex for Blundstone. Now, that's in the eye of the beholder. I don't think he had the control that he was aiming for in that. He's picked a very narrow gap in the cordon.
That just reminds me of Damian Martin. I've been watching him today from behind, and there's a lot of Damian Martin in him, just his movements, the way he walks. But Damian Martin, if they just have that second slip gap and they've got a third slip and first slip, he'd just try and pierce it through that gap and just tease the bowler. That's just perfect batting from Labuschagne. I just love it. On top and just prepared to tease the bowler.
The slips are at gaps, the two that are there. Labuschagne plays the ball to the leg side. Ooh, a little fumble in the field. It got through the legs of Bonner and it gives up a run. That shouldn't have been registered.
Going back to that technique too, you're trying to be leg side of the ball, especially in the power play overs, even in Test cricket when you're on top of it. If you T20 cricket, if you're batting on off stump, all of a sudden the bowler, if he wants to attack the stumps and he misses that leg, it goes down leg side, bigger chance of a wide. But also, he's got that wide line outside off stump. You've forced him to narrow the width that he can bowl.
Holder to Smith, clips crisply from his pads out through a vacant mid-wicket. It's a long chase for Seals. He will get there as it pulls up. They'll turn for 3. And Smith helps himself to 70. It's 2 for 3, 24.
And if you look on the leg side, you can only have 2 behind square, so you've got more gaps on the leg side as well. So you're asking more questions of the bowler, both in T20 cricket and Test cricket as well.
Sorry.
Yeah, he either attacks the stumps and players that are good on the leg side who can access that side, all of a sudden asking the bowler to get off his stumps, bowl outside off stump, where there's less opportunity of getting him out. The only options you've got are getting him caught behind.
Short mid-wicket, comes into a catching position 2 pitches away from Labuschagne. He's got his 3rd highest Test score on the go at 173 as he stares down Holder and he pulls safely into the turf. Good dive from Bonner this time, having fumbled the previous. He knocked it down and saved runs. They still take 1. Labuschagne's 174. So 215 is his highest Test score in Sydney against New Zealand in January 2020. And 185 his maiden Test century against Pakistan in Brisbane. That was the summer of Marnus when he went 185, 162, 143 and 215 and announced himself as a world-class player. Smith to see the last ball of Holder's over. The former captain trying everything. It's that bouncer that was well too short to trouble. 2 for 325. Adam Collins coming in. SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus, the industry super fund for all Australians.
Anaconda's massive Black Friday sale is on now. Huge savings on camping gear, bikes, kayaks, fishing gear, clothing, footwear and more. Some exclusions apply. Up to 50% off. Black Friday sale on now at Anaconda. Play more and pay less. Anaconda!
Which oil keeps your business moving? Farmers and fleet managers, they know. Construction crews and car mechanics, they know. And you know. Valvoline, the original engine oil.
SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus. That's a plus. Adam Collins jumping in. Kyle Mayers away from us. 32 runs in the first 30 minutes this morning. Bowls here to Labuschagne in a short slip jumper. He's taking it off. Shouldering arms. He had it on a moment ago. Morning, Kat. Morning, Hoggy.
Morning, Colo.
Good morning again, Adam.
There's some news coming out of Rawalpindi, Kat, where we were earlier this year. They are going to play the Test match today.
Wow.
It was no sure thing overnight. The ECB and the PCB have put out a statement saying England can field an 11 that won't require Michael Acton and Rob Key and others to play. Mayers bowls rather to Labuschagne, who shoulders arms again. So they've 11 players ready to roll. Who knows who they will be exactly? That's yet to be determined. But they bought themselves a bit of fat last night, saying they could push it back 24 hours, which would have been unheard of before COVID, right? We never would have considered altering a schedule like that, but I suppose it's a good thing we have a bit more flexibility now after the pandemic, or after the worst of it. Mayers in here, bowls to Labuschagne, defending again.
Tell you what, they'll be lining up and just praying that they win the toss and bat first.
Yes. I'm not even entirely sure Ben Stokes is going to play, based on the reports from our colleagues in Pakistan. He was among the worst of those hit by the virus and went through the England squad, so...
They got a vice captain?
I was going to say, I don't think they have a vice captain. It'd be Joe Root, I assume, in an understudy capacity if needed. Mayers has 2 slips bowling here at Labuschagne on 174. Plays him from the crease, wants 1 quick single out towards point. 326, Labuschagne has 175.
There was a story, England touring India back in the Larwood days. Larwood's down out fine leg and his opening bowling partner is bowling the first ball of the Test match. Runs through the crease, past the slips, rushes into the toilet with the new ball. They didn't see him for 15 minutes, so play was delayed for a toilet break.
We were in India a few years ago, Kat, with Matthew Renshaw doing something similar. Here's Mayers bowling to Smith. Just tangled up on the front, had no run. The ball spills into the onside.
Just going back to their vice captaincy, they played a warm-up game in Abu Dhabi the other day, and I think Ollie Pope actually captained one of the teams. So whether he's being viewed as a future leader, or whether he's officially got the vice captaincy. I'm not sure, but
he's had a great year since leaving Australia. That is Ollie Pope. Mayers here. Last ball of the 99th over. Into Smith, who leaves alone again outside the off stump. So 1 run from the over on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more Australia. 2 for 326.
The GWM Ute is up for the challenge. Born tough and built smart to give you more. More features, reliability, comfort and safety for less. GWM Ute. Go with more.
Anaconda's massive Black Friday sale is on now. Huge savings on camping gear, bikes, kayaks, fishing gear, clothing, footwear and more. Some exclusions apply. Up to 50% off Black Friday sale on now at Anaconda. Play more and pay less. Anaconda!
Expert Simon Katich and Brad Hogg for Anaconda. Hit summer for 6 with Anaconda's 10% price beat guarantee. Kat, when we were in Pakistan earlier this year, we saw several wicketless sessions. I think 13 of them actually across the series, where the two batters who started the session ended it as well. This pair looking for back-to-back wicketless sessions here. Holder to Labuschagne. Out towards deep square. It won't quite carry the journey. Bounces about 15 yards in front of Jaden Seals. For a moment there, that top edge looked like it might be of interest for the West Indies. Instead, Labuschagne moves on to 176 with a single, 2 for 327.
Yeah, that just climbed on him a little bit more than he thought and couldn't quite control it because he was having to drag it from outside the line of off stump. But he was fortunate, landed safely in that forward square leg position. Jaden Seals is out there. He's probably about 20 metres off the boundary. So he's probably about 60 metres from the bat, but the ball only went probably 45 to 50.
Huge boundary in that direction. Smith on strike, bouncer from Holder through to the gloves of De Silva after the former captain ducks.
Talking about Seals, there was question marks before he came in here. He's got a bit of a dodgy knee. And he hasn't bowled today. I thought he was one of the better bowlers yesterday when he got it right. Every now and then he just bowled a little too wide, and I just thought they could have started up with him from one end. So him not bowling nearly 40 minutes into the first session.
Got the wicket of Warner yesterday. It's Holder here, wider of the crease to Smith, who turns him just behind square for an easy single. Moving Australia on to 2 for 328. Smith 71. Smith averaged 142 and 214 in the two series he played against the Windies in 15, then 15-16. So he's loved these contests.
Yeah, and I think it highlights where they're at with their bowling attack. We spoke about it yesterday. It's a developing team. That yes, they've got the experience of Holder and Roach, but they're probably towards the back end of their careers, not the peak of their powers. And then you've got two young kids in Joseph and Seals, and they don't have that world-class spinner to be able to tie up an end when it gets older.
Catching mid-wicket for Labuschagne, but it's outside the off-stump and steered just in front of point, easy single. 177, that's his 300th delivery. 2 for 329 the score.
So as a result of that, the Australian top 4 highly experienced players, they just knew soak up some pressure in that first session and then they'll get the rewards later. And I think they'll do exactly the same thing today.
Yeah, Khawaja said it when we spoke to him before play that he just had to be acceptant of the situation yesterday morning and couldn't try and force the pace, and was out to Kyle Mayers deep into the second session. Holder here to Smith. Lets it hit him on the thigh pad. Spills out into the onside, no run. We saw Smith do a bit of that here a couple of years ago against New Zealand. They get to really go that way, though, are they, the Windies? They bowled a little bit of short stuff this morning, but we haven't got the sort of leg slip, leg gully. Or you could just about call the fielder behind square the leg gully now, Bonner. But generally speaking, they've kept it in conventional areas to Smith.
Yeah, and I mentioned it before, they don't quite have the same airspeed. I mean, Neil Wagner's not overly quick, but it's something that was a strength of his, and he does it all the time. It's one of his, I guess, trademark moves.
Last ball of Holder's over to Smith, who defends from the crease. 100 overs gone on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more Australia. 2 for 329 with Labuschagne 177 and Smith 71.
At Brighton, homes are built for entertaining. So show off your kitchen and not the mess with a bonus butler's pantry, including a Fisher & Paykel fridge and double dish drawer. Plus, with ducted air, steel frame, flooring and solar included in all Brighton homes, all you need is the butler. But hurry, this bonus won't last for long. Entertaining is better with Brighton. Visit brightonhomes.net.au. T's and C's apply. QBCC 1250787.
36 runs for Australia this morning, including 3 boundaries for Rotaflex by Blunston. Kyle Mayers, his third over of the morning, in here, bowling to Labuschagne, playing off the back foot, dabbing behind point for an easy single. He's 178, 2 for 330. So they came together just before tea yesterday. They batted throughout the final session. Now they're 40 minutes into day 2. Their union unbroken. We've said goodbye to Simon Katich. Hogg and me for the next 20 minutes.
Australia just doing what they need to do. Just bat for as long as they can today.
Maybe till tea or thereabouts. Mayers bowls to Smith, who's forward. Hits him on the pad and the inside edge, but he's well outside the line. Good bowling and good batting.
Because this wicket gets a little tougher if the cracks do open up out here. And it'll be tougher batting on that final day. So they want to make sure that they have enough runs on the board if they want to enforce the follow-on straight away.
Man back at deep backward square for the short ball if Mayers goes for it. He does here. Slow through the air and Smith's well underneath it. Just 118 kilometres an hour. I know we've remarked upon Mayers' speed quite a bit, but Usman Khawaja before play today. White's called here, by the way, by umpire Illingworth. It wouldn't be often that Kyle Mayers would bowl a bumper, but he said it felt like Khawaja was playing county cricket. My mind immediately jumped to a county should sign him. Imagine a guy who could open the bowling and open the batting in the championship. Mayers is perfect for England. He's in here, 2 catches behind the wicket. Fuller to Smith, who plays awkwardly but effectively behind point for another single. He's 72, 2 for 332.
And that brings up a comment from Ian Bishop that I think Gerard was on with us, with Ian Bishop. And back through his time, the Greenwiches, the Viv Richards, their bowlers, their quick bowlers, they got plenty of opportunity to go and play county cricket, which helped develop their game. So it'd be a great opportunity for a county club to get someone like Myers to help with that development, not only with the ball, but the bat as well.
Absolutely. Given he sort of came to the international game late, you need to get an NOC, you need to have played international cricket to kind of get over there. There's a 2-step process, but yes, he looks purpose-built to run in on a green top in May, that's for sure. At this pace, blowing off front pads and all the rest of it. A little bit of nibble. He's bowling here from the members' end. Into Labuschagne on 178. It's hit him on the pad bar, the inside edge. Ends up at mid-wicket. There's no single there to Roston Chase. Well bowled again. Asking decent questions this morning.
I just like this field a little better than what we're seeing at the other end with Jason Holder. They've got a bit more coverage in the cover region. So they've got a cover mid-off and a 0.2 slips, and they've got a short mid-wicket mid-on. So it's allowing Myers to bowl and try and get those wicket-taking opportunities.
Mayers here to Labuschagne, driving out towards mid-on. No run.
In the slips, and also be able to attack the stumps. So you're bringing more options of getting wickets out in LBW, bowls. Whereas with Jason Holder at the other end, they've got the cover wide open, and it's asking Jason Holder to bowl straighter on the pads of the Australians where they love it, and they're just working the ones and just ticking the scoreboard over easily.
So Mayers to finish to Labuschagne again on leg stump, and again straight to Roston Chase. So just a single from the over, 2 for 332 after 101 overs on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more.
The GWM Ute is up for the challenge. Born tough and built smart to give you more. More features, reliability, comfort and safety for less. GWM Ute. Go with more.
Stuff for your face and body? It's men's skincare with a purpose. Top quality Aussie-made grooming and skincare to help guys look and feel great with no hassles. Plus, Stuff is helping mental health too. Find Stuff at Woolworths or visit websiteofstuff.com.
You can text us in the commentary box throughout the summer on 0433 98 11 16 for tyre power and the summer scorcher sale. Message in about dibbly dobblers. This is a bit unfair, I reckon. Terry Alderman was the king of them, says Stephen. I mean, a man who took 40 wickets in an Ashes series twice. Did you play at all? Did you cross over with Terry Alderman at the end of his career?
Terry Alderman, when he first came on the scenes, was one of the quickest bowlers here in WA. Then he did his shoulder.
Yeah. It all changed. Here's Kemar Roach. Start of a new spell. Bowls here to Smith. The bending off the back foot. Quick single just in front of point. Good use of the crease there from the vice-captain. He's 73. It's 2 for 3.
Talk about Steve Smith tinkering with his batting technique. Terry Alderman, Dennis Lilly, great exponents on having major injuries, but then tinkering with their technique to be able to stay in the game at the highest level and get the ball to move more in the air and off the seam. But Terry Alderman was rated as one of the quickest bowlers WA's ever seen.
Roach to Labuschagne, who defends back down the pitch. Yes, he went from being a tearaway when he took 41 wickets in the 81 series, and then in 89, I was interviewing Graham Gooch recently, and he still jokes about it, that his answering machine message at the time was, "G'day, it's Graham," or probably not g'day. "Hi, it's Graham. I'm out, leg before wicket to Alderman." That was his...
I thought it'd be, "Hey, I'm Graham Gooch."
Yeah, that really high accent.
Yes.
Goochie. Essex accent, we could probably call it. Labuschagne, 178, facing Roach here. Langer end and Langer. And Labuschagne on the back foot, placing it just in front of point. Doesn't get much of it. 2 for 3 with that single. He's 179, the Queenslander.
Used to love staying up watching Alderman bowl to Gooch.
Yes.
With the Duke ball. When's the pad going to be hit?
Well, yeah, we were talking about county cricket and Kyle Mayers before. I wonder whether they'll just drop Scotty Boland into a club next year for a month before the Ashes to bowl with the Duke's ball and prepare perfectly for a series that he's bound to bowl in. Roach towards us, towards Smith, shuffles across his stumps and defends down past the stumps at the non-striker's end. No run.
Well, that's the type of thing that is a wise move. Try and get Boland over there and see how, well, just give him that exposure early on to county conditions.
The schedule came out yesterday. The season starts on the 6th of April, so look, it'll be during the IPL. I don't expect Boland's getting an IPL contract, so 4 or 5 rounds. Doesn't have to play every week. I'm sure any club would love Scott Boland if he made himself available. Roach, who plays for Surrey, delivers here, leaving alone outside the off stump is Stephen Smith into the gloves of Josh De Silva. Yeah, Roach has been brilliant the last 2 years playing in the county championship, and I think that's mirrored his excellent form for the Windies. He's raced from 200 to 250 test wickets, albeit none of them coming in Australia. Wicketless so far in this test.
Yeah, but they talk about workloads. Right, so you've got an opportunity playing county cricket and you're a long-form bowler. Yep. You're best off over there playing games rather than just doing sprints, running, bowling in the nets. At least you're getting match practice as well, more experience.
Spot on. Roach to finish, to Smith again. Tucks it down to deep backward square. Maybe 2. They take on Seals, they choose not to. So Smith will retain the strike. He's up to 74. End of the over on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more. Australia, 2 for 335.
If you've got to build it, lift it, power it, floodlight it, do it right with Oz Equipment Rentals. They're helping Aussie industries go higher by supplying access equipment, lighting towers and materials handling equipment to the construction, mining and roadwork industries. If you are building a new runway, a new road, a new warehouse, a new highway, the name you want is Oz Equipment Rentals. They also support community sporting clubs like Lara Cats, Werribee Centrals and the Ultima Kangaroos. Visit ozequipment.com.
Our first session is for MEGT, Australia's apprenticeship and employment experts, Adam Collins and Brad Hogg, with you on the call here at Perth Stadium. Between overs, Stephen Smith changed gloves as he does so routinely. He's there on 74 and back on strike.
Yeah, I just think you've got different types of players for different formats.
Mayer's in, still 2 slips, then 2 back for the short ball. And Smith deflects it to second slip. Jason Holder collects on the bounce, but that was right off the face of the bat, trying to steer it down to deep third.
So you've got T20 players or white ball format players that you probably would allow to go away and play in the T20 tournaments to get more exposure there. But then you've got your long form players like Scott Boland. If you can get them in those environments where they're going to bowl more overs out in the middle in that longer format, it's going to build their body, get their body ready for Test cricket.
Absolutely. Here's Mayers, bowls to Smith, who drives off the outside part of the bat through backward point. Out towards the rope it goes. It's the long side of the ground. It's man versus ball. Seals after it and just hauls it in with about a foot before it would have reached the rope. They come back for an all-run four, as rare as that is in the modern game. Smith to 78. We'll call it a boundary for Rotaflex by Blunston. Up to 2 for 339.
I was not impressed by that chase.
Looks a bit underdone, doesn't he, Seals?
He looks very underdone. He was just jogging, thinking that the ball was going to go to the rope, then realised it wasn't going to get there, so then put the burners on, going at three-quarter pace. So I just feel as though he's injured, hasn't bowled at all today.
So Smith, 22 away from a ton now, facing up to Mayers and defending out to cover off the back foot no run. He had a little bit of a problem with conversion for a while there, Smith. There were 4 unconverted, if you like, 50s earlier this year. One at Sydney, one at Rawalpindi, then at Karachi, and then at Lahore. And it was a point of frustration. He spoke to us before the second Gaul Test match about how it was getting on his nerves. And sure enough, 145 not out in his next Test innings. What he would give for a ton to start the summer alongside his mate Marnus. Facing up here, short ball from Mayers, second of those we've seen in the last 2 overs. And we look to the radar, 114.7. Bless.
Well, it's definitely becoming dibbly-dob now. That's a lot. That's what I like. You know, look at the Virat Kohlis, you look at Joe Root, Steve Smith. They've had their up and downs, but they always come back with a vengeance.
Smith facing up. Bowling here is Mayers and defends off the front foot out towards mid-wicket, no run. Smith, much as it is with Labuschagne, loves to bat in the first innings of a Test match, so that when they bat first on day one, he averages 87, Smith, and he's nearly up to that mark again here. All of our numbers for Laurenix Cleaning, Google Laurenix Cleaning today.
And I think if you look at Steve Smith, I think sometimes the focus on T20 to try and play in a T20 World Cup team sometimes takes away from his technique and can affect his approach at Test level as well and affect those performances.
So it's Mayers to finish his 15th over. Bowls here to Smith, who takes him just in front of the square leg umpire for the easiest of singles. He's 79, end of the over. Australia 2 for 340. Our coverage is for Host Plus, the industry super fund for all Australians.
Serious outdoor work requires serious outdoor tools. And this season, Makita is helping you rule the outdoors with the world's largest 18-volt LXT range and the revolutionary XGT 40-volt Max. Makita's Power Garden range will help you take control of your lawn without the need for messy fuel. Tame your hedges with less noise. Cut hardwood down to size with more power. Now, with a 5-year limited warranty on new cordless products. Makita, rule the outdoors.
SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus, that's a plus. I've got Brad Hogg with me for Anaconda. Hits summer for 6 with Anaconda's 10% price beat guarantee. Roach bowls, Smith clips, turns it fine. Gets one, moves into the 80s. 2 for 341. A text coming in here for Tyre Power and their summer scorcher sale. And this is in from Stuart, who came to the Wacker as a child when Terry Alderman did his shoulder. It was 82, 83. They were fresh from moving from the UK. And we were used to going to football games where there were thousands rioting after games. The news would say, slight disturbance after the game, air quotes. We saw the incident at the Wacker and thought nothing of it, really. As Roach turns from the Langer end and bowls now to Labuschagne, who looks to just play this down towards deep third one-day style, but in the end, it's a play and a miss through to the silver. We got home and Mum said, "Are you okay?" We said, "Why?" She said, "It's all over the news. There's a riot at the cricket." My dad said, "If this is a riot, this is literally paradise." Certainly feisty with the chap that ran on the ground, and Terry Alderman said, I'll take him out. I'll give him a shoulder charge, and well, yeah, it didn't end well.
Terry just wasn't as built as Andrew Simons.
Exactly.
With hip and shoulder out the gabba there.
Here's Roach with the 2 slips in a gully. Bowls to Labuschagne, defending off the front pad out to mid-wicket again. No run. Stays at 2 for 341 with Labuschagne 179. Smith on 80 in this partnership worth 190.
I think I was feeding sheep on the farm when that happened and got the highlights when I got back home. It only seemed as I think there was a bit of the crowd on the WACA ground as well because they'd rope it off because the WACA was a lot bigger. It was probably even bigger than the MCG.
They used to have 2 grounds on it, didn't they?
They used to have 3 wicket blocks.
3 wicket blocks, right. As Roach gets to the crease, delivers here to Labuschagne. Inside edge past the stumps. Gets a single from it. Spills out just behind square. He's up to 180.
So I remember
342.
West Perth used to play there, and they used to have 2 grey games going on at once out the WACA.
Oh, right.
And country week cricket, my dad used to come up and play on one of the pitches, but you'd be fielding on a deep square leg, and you'd only be 10 metres away from the batsman on the other pitch. But it was fantastic.
So would some of the field be shared?
Yes,
yeah. Boundaries.
That's when they used to cross over the boundary lines.
A bit like Como Park in South Yarra. Melbourne context. Roach bowls and beats Smith outside the off stump with one that hits the seam and steers away into the gloves of De Silva. Nice bit of bowling with a second new ball that's 21 overs old. There's still something there.
But you'd be fielding out deep square leg and you'd be talking to the point fielder in the opposite game. So you'd be able to catch up with different things that are happening around the country from players from different regions.
You wouldn't expect that in first grade cricket, but I suppose if you get the chance to play at the WACA, why wouldn't you?
Oh, definitely.
I was sad to see the Prindiville stand and the Inverarity stand knocked down when I went to the WACA before this test. Roach up to Smith and bowls and he defends. Out to the offside. That's the end of the over. 1 run coming from it on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more Australia. 2 for 342.
Imagine the thought of innovation at your fingertips, accelerating with efficiency and power. Imagine a bold, striking design with the comfort and confidence of advanced safety tech. Imagine where you could go in a Hyundai SUV. An SUV range with enough style, tech and performance to turn your imagination into reality. So if you're thinking SUV, think Hyundai SUV. Discover yours at hyundai.com.au.
SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus. That's a plus, and it looks like we're going to have a bowling change. Alzari Joseph, our bowling changes. Time for a change of scenery. Head to Mildura for your next long weekend. Good idea.
Good idea.
Joseph bowled 15 overs yesterday, none for 46.
Oh, it's good to have Joseph on, just change of pace.
Yes, an exercise in contrast from Mayers to Joseph. Still 2 back for the short ball. 2 slips and a gully behind the wicket. On the way to Labuschagne, he's 180. Bowls here, and it's short and wide and cut away to deep point for a single. Loosener there from the big quick. Labuschagne 181. Australia 2 for 343.
He wants to be on the money from ball 1. No looseners here.
So you're on the Cricket West Australia board, aren't you?
Yeah, well, the Inverarity stand has just been knocked down, so John Inverarity put his name up that he wants to get on the board to try and get that stand back up.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, seeing the 2 old stands sitting there, or the gaps where they used to be, I suppose now, there is a development plan, isn't there, where they might play Test cricket back over there again as Joseph turns beneath us and runs in towards Smith. Bowls here. Good length, good line, left through to the gloves of De Silva.
Well, if you're going to start a test match on a Wednesday, it's probably better to play out the WACA because you've got 10,000 people here, 10,000 out the WACA. They're going to be a lot closer.
Well, there was a bit of myth-busting done on this by Dan Breddick from The Age yesterday. I mean, you go back to the last time Perth hosted the first test of the summer. That's 2016 against South Africa. Yeah, fairly hyped-up series. There was 12,000 there on day 1 and roughly 11 yesterday. So kind of in the margins, really, over the river there at the WACA. Joseph up to Smith, bowls here. Plays it through the cordon for 4 runs. Just thumped it into the turf between second slip and gully. A boundary for Rotaflex by Blunston. Smith up to 84. Australia 2 for 347.
Yeah, just the extra pace, extra width as well from Joseph. Just hasn't found his line and length. And Steve Smith just utilising the pace. Whereas Marnus Labuschagne, who's been in a lot longer, try to force it through that deep point region. Just a different contrast between the 2 batsmen.
They'd be busy this morning, this pair, taking it from 293 to 347 inside the first hour. Joseph on the charge. First over of the day for him. Bowls here to Smith, who tucks him into the onside, just in front of the square leg umpire. He's 85. 2 for 349. Just coming back to the point. So when we moved over here for Test cricket. It was always, well, India, England, big Test matches at Perth Stadium, and the ones that won't draw quite so many over at the WACA. Does that remain the plan from a cricket WA perspective?
Not at the moment. I think everything's here for the next 5 years at least, and then we'll revisit that. This is the first time that we've had the West Indies here for a long time, so you've got to think about that as well. But the other thing is too, the timing of the Test match. It's still school holidays.
Yep. Joseph into Labuschagne, bowls here. He also steers it down towards deep third, square of the man at deep backward point. They get a couple. He's 183. Australia 2 for 350. Another little milestone on the way through his big first innings.
So you've got to look at the timing as well. We're in the middle of harvest here as well, so a lot of our country members aren't here. You'll hear the applause for the 350. So a lot of our country members can't come up because they're too busy taking their crop off.
Sure.
So it's just all about timing. And I was talking to Nick Hockley, the CEO of Cricket Australia. They want to play a couple of Test matches after the Sydney Test matches in the future.
Last ball before drinks, Joseph bowls, and shouldering arms is Labuschagne. He's on 183. Smith's on 85. Australia 2 for 350. This is a partnership that's now worth 199. We'll take our drinks break for Bundaberg Ginger Beer. On the other side of it, Gerard Whateley replacing me.
Introducing the Drive Car of the Year, the Kia Sportage. Awarded for its new turbo engine that gives you progressive performance. The Kia Sportage has a boldly sculpted sportsback design and soft touch leather interior, making it a natural leader. Kia Sportage, the Drive Car of the Year. To find out more, visit kia.com.au or visit your nearest Kia dealer.
Kia, movement that inspires.
This is Ben Reid. Spring has come and gone without the real estate market hitting top gear. With the lack of quality stock available, many sellers are still wondering, should they put their property on the market now or wait until the new year to get a better result? At Ian Reid Vendor Advocates, we answer questions like this and provide invaluable guidance so your home sells quickly for the best price without any additional cost. Call 9430 0000 or visit ianreid.com.au.
Ian Reid Vendor Advocates.
Go on, ring us.
As to Labuschagne, pulls inside edge past the stump, streaky boundary. He's very lucky to survive that, Marnus. Bowls to Labuschagne, who cuts very close to the body. Myers flies away in slip, but he can't haul it in. It runs down for a boundary.
Here's Myers, bowls to Smith, who drives off the outside part of the bat through backward point. Come back for an all-run four, as rare as that is in the modern game. Smith to 78.
It's had its moments, but for Australia, 57 runs added in the first hour of play. Marnus Labuschagne is 183. Steve Smith is 85. The drinks break is for Bundaberg Ginger Beer, the great Australian brew. So there's been the odd ball here or there that's created a moment's hesitation, Brad Hogg, but for the most part, the batters are in command.
They are in command, and it's just going to be a question mark of when Australia want to declare, I think, today. And they want to make sure that they declare at the right time. They don't want to put themselves in a position where they have to be more aggressive with the bat in the second innings because the West Indies bat a period of time. They don't bowl the West Indies out as cheaply as they think they can. That's up to the West Indies to bat well, but also they don't want to put themselves in a position where they've got to put the West Indies back in again and try and bowl them out twice. They want to have time to bat a second time to give their bowlers a rest as well. So that's probably the big headache for Australia now. When will they declare?
Yes, well, they've got all the time in the world. As plus 500 is a certainty from here, and the time in the Test match. It's so early on. Hoggy, we'll talk to you as the day goes on. Good man.
Yep, no drama.
Bring Damian Fleming into the experts' chair. SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus. That's a plus. Hello to you, Flem.
Hey, Gerard. I'll declare that the Aussies are going to grind the West Indies, and they're not going to declare for a fair while. I'm thinking 90 minutes before the end of play.
Yeah, I'm thinking the same. I think they'll definitely bat into the final session for a substantial period. They can...
Big individual
Yeah, if they want to put up 600, then that's well within their grasp.
And they won't mind soft runs for Travis Head and Green and Carey, you know, into a big summer. And they're ahead of the game. The run rate's good. The pitch is going to continue to have movement. And they've got the fast bowlers. Well, sorry, Nathan Lyon's got a great record here too. So I think they're just going to sit back and let the Marnus and Stephen Smith show continue.
Yes, what have they taken it from? They're a run short of the 200 run stand now. So they came together at 2 for 151, and it's now 2 for 350. So I was noting yesterday this is their 8th century stand in Test cricket, and they're going to make a big one of it. Marnus Labuschagne is 183. His second highest score in Test cricket is 185, and then beyond that, 215 is his highest Test score. So that all feels like it's at his mercy, and Steve Smith's on 85. It's all on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more. And there's been plenty of correspondence throughout the morning as well. 0433 98 11 16. While we've discussed the place of the Perth Test and the crowd yesterday and what's building today, Michael texts through Gerard, poor promotion, no open training sessions, little fanfare, and starting on a Wednesday. Even the activations. Smith sees the first ball after the drinks break and he clips it away firmly out through mid-wicket. It's a fair old chase into the deep. It'll be overhauled 5 in from the boundary, and Smith takes 3. He goes to 88 as a result. It's 2 for 353. So the rest of Michael's message, even the activations outside the ground were very low-key. Perth ripped off again in a summer of cricket. That's the 200-run stand between Marnus Labuschagne and Steve Smith, and it's also going to be a no ball as we have a look at the replay.
And I didn't hear when Nick Hockley, the Cricket Australia CEO, was in. Did you touch on the timings of this? Is it just purely schedule, or was there some movement?
No, I think he acknowledges that Wednesday is not the right day to start a Test series, but that's the way the difficulty of the calendar fell. Roach bowls, Smith leans forward and defends the ball to mid-on. Labuschagne, I beg your pardon.
Yeah, we want a fair Test match for all the big stadiums we've got now in Australia, but I hope Perth does get some love. If there's a schedule now like this summer going forward, I'd love them to get a South Africa Test, because there's so many South Africans that live here in Perth, and obviously in a better time of the year.
Roach is in from the Langer end. He bowls to Labuschagne, who drives, and he beats Roach, but he won't beat Chase. He won't get a run at mid-off.
And the timings are hard. I mean, all the other stadiums would love a Boxing Day Test and the Sydney Test right in that position, but it's been like that for years. So I think spectators, appreciate habits, and if you can find a slot that's consistent each year, people will program around it.
Roach muscles his way in. He bowls to Labuschagne, who takes him off the pads. He won't beat the dive at mid-wicket, but he will get a single. Bonner stopped it in its tracks. But 1 is all there is.
Because traditionally, the Gabba's the first Test match, and I think Queenslanders expect that, and even though it's not in school holidays, generally starts on a Thursday. They get pretty good crowds.
So the only way to get everyone into the optimal space is to have the old Test schedule, which finishes on Australia Day, and play them beyond the Sydney Test. Smith leaves outside the off stump, but we know the way that the summer in Australia has developed. As you've got the Big Bash.
What have they done with Australia Day? Is there a big Bash game on there? I mean, there was calls a couple of years ago. It wouldn't be a bad final day of the BBL Australia Day, because I played in 1 or 2 Adelaide Test matches that were on Australia Day, and definitely a one-dayer. It was massive.
Yeah, it was a big one-dayer, wasn't it? I think they had a triple header of the BBL more recently. Roach is bowling to Smith, who leaves outside the off stump. 2 for 355. It does, yeah, the Big Bash, that window is so interesting, as you could bring that to a huge climax on Australia Day with the final.
And it wouldn't matter where you played it, it'd be packed.
You could move that around sort of Super Bowl style and give each state a look at the BBL final across a 5-year, 6-year schedule.
I'm thinking, gee, Whateley consultant, you've done the Super Bowl, you know how to work it.
Roach to Smith, drops it to the leg side. You heard him say no run. So 4 from the over, 2 for 355 on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
Download the SEN app from the Apple and Google App Stores. Then get set for all your big moments in sports.
Ash on the forehand cross, Gossie's done it. Ash Barty. Jalawala Shaw for 3.
He's striking them pure.
Listen to any SEN show from around Australia and New Zealand.
Gary Rock and Tim Watson. Mornings with Ian Smith. Tim Gossage. This is Trackside.
Plus, it's now available on Apple CarPlay. The SEN app, your home of sport, from wherever you are on the planet.
We're going to see some spin. Oh, Damian, Fleming, I'm glad you're here for it. 2 for 355. Marnus Labuschagne is 184. Steve Smith is 88. Roston Chase bowled 15 overs, 2 maidens, none for 63. So he got walloped around Perth Stadium yesterday. I suppose once you've tried everybody else, there's nothing else to do. SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus, that's a plus.
Got some BBL fields here at Perth Stadium.
Oh, far and wide,
4 out for the off-spinner.
Yeah. Deep mid-wicket, deep cover point, long on,
surely,
and long off.
Surely you want them to take a bit of a risk.
Right at the start, anyway. Chase will begin his work on day 2. He's over the wicket. He's bowling to Labuschagne, who plays from the stumps and fiddles the ball out to cover. Takes a single and moves alongside his second highest scoring Test cricket, which was his first century, 185 against Pakistan in Brisbane.
Thank you.
Yep, there's not a lot to talk about with bowling and fielding here.
Let's get Stephen here, boys. Come on.
Let's get Stevens the call.
Come on.
How they're going to go about it's interesting.
Chase bowls to Smith, who turns around the corner and helps himself to the run at square leg. Goes to 89.
It's hard not to think that he'll go for 4 or 5 singles every over if Marnus and Stephen Smith are happy just to hit the gaps and get down the other end.
Yes, it would be only a moment of intemperance, it would seem. Labuschagne advanced and then blunted the ball when he got there, no run.
And the problem with Chase, I thought yesterday too, was his inaccuracies. By coming down the pitch, which has been Marnus's go.
Labuschagne readies himself. He stays home. He plays from the stumps. He clubs it away to long off and ambles through for a run. 186 for Labuschagne, 2 for 358.
He can get to the pitch of ball and hit it hard, which he did a couple of times yesterday. But then also he does offer that half tracker every now and again. That is so easy to put away.
Chase bowls to Smith. Leans on the ball to mid-wicket. No run.
Doing it, boys. Work it, boys. Come on, Ross. Keep going, boys.
Joshua De Silva trying to lift spirits, which seem decidedly deflated at the moment. Smith knocks the ball to the short mid-on and won't get a run. 3 singles from the over. 2 for 358. The GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
When the job needs doing, that's Ace. When you need it fast, that's Ace. When it's Ace Gutters, it's built to last.
As a roofing plumber working on an estate, I can't afford to be sitting around waiting for gutters, fascias and downpipes to be delivered. That's why I've always used Ace Gutters. If I order a stocked item by 5 a.m. that morning, I know I'll get it the same day.
When it's Ace Gutters, it's built to last.
Call 9586 4888 or log on to acegutters.com.au.
6,000 in at the start of the day's play. SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus, that's a plus. Australia have advanced things productively. 2 for 358. Labuschagne's 186. Smith is 89. Alzari Joseph is bowling from the Langer stand end. He's bowling to Labuschagne, who plays late and guides the ball to cover. He won't collect the run. So a bit of sentiment floating around. Flem. Paul has sent this through. Let me assure you, I grew up in the 80s and the dominance of the West Indies over Australia. Trust me, I don't mind dominating the West Indies now. Yeah, payback for all those years. And you know what you know that the pendulum swings and the wheel turns one day, and they'll be dominating us again, and we'll lament not enjoying this period. How old are you?
52.
Yeah, I'm 48. So we had pretty similar childhoods with the West Indies. Labuschagne is leaving outside the off stump. So it felt like when we were growing up, the West Indies were here every summer. They were either playing Test cricket or one-dayers. So I had a quick look back to see what's real and what's imagined. Between March 1978 and January 1993, there were 36 Test matches between the West Indies and Australia, and the West Indies won 19 of them, and Australia won 6. In Australia, in that 15-year block, there were 21 Test matches, and the West Indies won 11. So Australia won only 4 Tests to get them on home soil. Labuschagne plays late, cuts over the top of gully, gets a boundary. He went in the air, and it was just enough to clear Brooks. He's 190, Labuschagne. We wait to see how close that was to the outstretched hands. It's a boundary for Rotaflex by Blunston. Stability meets the freedom to move.
You'd still feel like Marnus was unlucky if that was caught, because it was short and wide and he hit it very, very hard. Yes, he hit it in the air. So, you know, a brilliant catch. I think it was past him before he'd actually, he's surprised in the reaction afterwards.
So just enough coverage to get over gully for Labuschagne. Joseph tries again and Labuschagne defends. So
just on that, take out the Sydney Test.
Well, all of those 4 wins are like huge markers in our lives.
Oh, I know. I can name them.
Yep. So Boxing Day 81, Kim Hughes, Dennis Lilly. Sydney 85, Kepler Vessels and Dutchy Holland.
What about your friend Murray Bennett and his delivery to Sir Vivian?
Yes. Sydney 89, Alan Border, 7 for.
One of the lowlights of my cricketing career. AB's got an 11 for. And he loves it.
Joseph bowls, Labuschagne leaves. And Melbourne 92, where Warne almost his arrival, 7 for in the 4th innings of the Test match to bowl Australia to victory.
Actually,
like landmark moments when Australia would beat the West Indies.
And know the Bennett arm ball, the Warney flipper. And it's reversed so much they would prefer to play us at SCG.
Yep.
Because when we did the one day against England, it was barren and the Shield game turned. So that's funny, isn't it? That they prefer, that's more like their home conditions.
Joseph in and bowls to Labuschagne. Full toss. Knocked it away to mid-on. Won't get a run. End of the over. 2 for 362. The GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more.
How do you keep the romance alive in your relationship?
If you want romance in the evening, it starts in the morning with doing the dishes. It goes for the whole day.
The small things again, I think. It's the smile, the handhold, the doing the dishes occasionally means a lot.
It's often the little things that make a relationship better. For free PDFs, videos and podcasts about keeping your love alive, go to messagesofhope.org.au. I'm Richard Fox from messagesofhope.org.au.
SEN Test Cricket for Host Plus, the industry super fund for all Australians. 2 for 362. So just trawling through the reminiscence of the years West Indies and Australia when we were growing up. If you're of a certain age and lived through the bulk of the 80s as a kid, and the West Indies were cool, but they were terrifying. Chase bowls out the back of the hand. Smith whacked it away to mid-on. He won't get a run. And then there's the one-dayers and the World Series Cup. And
that infamous tie, wasn't it? And the West Indies went, well, we can't lose the series. And they made them play a third one or a fifth one.
Chase bowls and Smith covers his stumps. The days when the news would overlap with the one-dayers always come back. And Australia would be 4 for 17 after 7 with poor old Bruce Laird holding down an end while Garner had 3 for 3. Smith faces up to chase, and he's driving out to the deep points. He'll just get a run. Smith to 90.
Talk about matchups. A matchup I loved watching was when Joel Garner bowled to Bruce Yardley.
Yeah.
Because Roo used to back away and show the stumps, but if he didn't get it right, he used to smash them through point. But when Garner got the Yorker perfect, well, it's game over.
Yep. Chase over the wicket, bowls, and Labuschagne plays from the stumps. He won't beat the extra cover. It's Bonner who's on the spot and averts the run. So maybe a memory or two of yours, 0433 98 11 16.
Yes, please.
What traumas or what triumphs live with you, particularly from the 80s? Back and covering the stumps as Labuschagne. So I can remember...
Did you sort of feel before you got in there, Gerard, that no, but they were actually admired, if not supported?
Yes.
Out here?
Well, that was the trouble, wasn't it? It's not that we had anything against Australia. It was just they were so good and so cool that it took the pain to some degree out of what was happening. Down the ground comes Labuschagne. He's picked it up into the deep. It lands short of Chanderpaul, who fields on the first bounce at deep mid-wickets. Labuschagne to 191.
Just go a bit straighter, please, Marnus.
And that is the end of the over. 2 for 364 on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
Real Adventures with Patrick Dangerfield and Aaron Hapgood. Everything fishing, boating and outdoors.
Sailfish are sort of like salmon of the kingfish.
Really?
Yeah, they do nothing for me.
Salmon of the kingfish?
Yeah, so like kingfish is like the prize fish. Oh, we've got a couple of salmon on the way in. That's what I see as sailfish. They're a cool-looking fish, and I've caught a fair few sailfish.
They're the fastest fish in the ocean.
I know,
you
but they're really slow when you've got a rod hooked up to them.
Patrick Dangerfield and Aaron Hapgood. Subscribe and listen today wherever you get your podcasts.
The first session for MEGT, Australia's apprenticeship and employment experts. The whistling you're hearing is Joshua De Silva, who's keeping himself amused, the wicketkeeper. And we are watching Alzari Joseph bowl from the Langer stand end. Steve Smith is on 90. Labuschagne's 191. He has the strike. He's pulling across the line safely to the square leg umpire. It trickles out into the deep. And a single taken, 2 for 365. Michael Holding starting his run up from near the boundary. Never forget it, Matt Norbury. I can remember being terrified by Joel Garner as a kid. Ambrose ripping through us in Perth. The wristbands. No more need be said about the wristbands.
Iconic.
Yep. I can place where I was for a good many of these moments. The havoc that they would wreak. Joseph over the wicket, bowls to Smith, who tucks the ball to the leg side. He was looking to turn that defined leg. He got it squarer than intended, but he still picks up a single. Smith's 91.
And hopefully for the kids watching or listening, you know, Marnus's hopefully 200 is something they recall in decades to come as well.
Clive Lloyd, to me, was West Indies' success. The man batted like he was playing from an armchair.
The big, heavy bat. How many grips did he have?
Yeah.
Half a dozen, I think.
That was something that kids were all putting extra grips on.
Replicated.
Labuschagne leaves outside the off stump.
I remember Baptiste. Yep. From West Indies. Just purely, I didn't know they had medium paces. Where did this man come from?
Yeah. And then sort of your favourite niche West Indies cricketer. So there were the headline acts, but Larry Gomes.
We could not get him out. Could we?
No. Labuschagne's on 192. He faces up to Joseph and he defends.
And he used to bowl those little chasers, didn't he? Little offies that didn't move, but he got his 10 overs in. Him and Sir Viv would share the 10.
Yep.
And then we had Kepler Vessels bowling 10. Remember when Kepler bowled?
Who's in the Larry Gomes category? Gus Logie? Just
in that category,
superstars.
but you know, his fielding took him to superstar status.
Yeah.
Well, him and Roger Harper used to share being 12th man, didn't they?
Yes.
But were always on the field.
She's a bit of a setup. Labuschagne faces up. He turns the ball to the leg side. Ambles through for another. He's 193. It's 2 for 367. Chris in Bateman's Bay. I remember the ads as much as the cricket. How do you feel when you face Big Joel for the final bowl? How do you feel? I feel like a Tooheys. I feel like a Tooheys. I feel like a Tooheys or two. I reckon Chris could sing that to us. Yes, Gus Logie was the best. That came through just as I was getting there. In 96, we spent the final 3 days of grade 6 watching the Windies play the Vicks in a tour match in Wangaratta. Smith faces up, knocks it away to the leg side and takes a single to mid-on. He moves to 92. We would arrive at school and our teachers would walk us down to the oval. End of the over, 2 for 368 on the GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM, go with more.
Ask anyone. Ask your parents. Ask their parents. Ask your friends, your neighbours. Ask the person who cuts your hair. Ask any Victorian which home insurance they would have on the one day it really matters. There's a good chance they'll tell you about RACV Home Insurance, Victoria's market leader for home insurance. So ask anyone or search RACV Home Insurance to ask us. General advice only. Consider the PDS and TMDs at racv.com.au. RACV earns commission as distributor. Products issued by IMA.
Marnus Labuschagne is 193. Steve Smith is 92. The score is 2 for 368. Chase begins the new over. Smith plays from his pads to the mid-wicket. No run. Reminiscing about days gone by. Roy Fredericks is a forgotten player.
Wow. That's got to be up there with the greatest knock of all time. It was 169.
Yep.
Billy Thompson, the Gilmore Walker.
Smith from the crease just lays bat on ball, places it to backward point, runs the first hard, doesn't come for the second. He had a mind to double up, but it wasn't to be. He's 93.
I'll go a random. World Series cricket was my first memories, Gerard.
Yep.
Lawrence Rowe, I think 175 in World Series cricket.
Yep. Chase bowls, Labuschagne back and cuts out to the deep cover point, moves to 194.
When you talk about characters, I touched on Aldine Baptiste. What about West Indian spinners?
Yeah.
Of that time.
That's niche of niche, isn't it? We're going
niche.
Deep there. We're going deep there. Smith's on 93, full ball, taken off the toes, placed it wide of mid-on. There's two in the deep. They converge to no avail. Beautifully struck boundary from Steve Smith, who moves within touching distance of a Test century, a 29th Test century. He's 97, 2 for 374.
That's a lovely shot. That's a lovely shot. An excellent execution.
Chase bowls to Smith, leans on the ball to mid-wicket.
Yeah, he kept the ball along the ground. Just a little whip at the last minute to generate the power.
Come on, Ross.
Oh. My aching bones. That's De Silva behind the stumps. Smith, crowd anticipating what's to come. A drive, he'll get it down to long on and take a single and move to 98. 2 for 375 at the end of the over.
As the supportive parent of a teen, there are times when you must decide yay or nay. Letting the band practice at your house. Yay. Cooking dinner for that strange friend who never speaks and never goes home. Yay. Giving your underage teen alcohol for the party? Nay. 87% of parents aren't giving their teens alcohol. So help your kids make the smart choice. DrinkWise wants you to know it's okay to say nay.
We shan't get distracted here, Damian Fleming. MEGT, the opening session of Play Australia's Apprenticeship and Employment Experts. We could talk McDonald's, posters, World Series cricket. But Steve Smith's on 98. Out in the middle of Perth Stadium, Alzari Joseph is bowling from the Langer stand end. More than 6,000 in at the start of day two, with a rich sense of anticipation building. Joseph in, bowls, Smith lets it pass. These are the best moments in cricket when I reckon you're in a stand and each ball is met by the slow clap which builds up. And
you used to cop that when you batted 11.
Right.
Every ball was like you was on 99. Like, good effort, he survived one ball.
111.1 overs have been sent down as Australia's compiled 375.
I wouldn't move from that position if I was Joseph.
Joseph rolls the shoulders into Steve Smith, who leaves outside the off stump.
So this is goodbye.
Yeah. That's better, isn't it?
Full, encouraging the cover drive. If you're good enough, you'll get 4 and bring up your 100. If you're not good enough, well, I'd almost have another slip in place.
Yeah.
And don't worry about point. With a man on 98.
Yes. So they've got
the deep point, sorry.
Finally, the deep backward square and the deep point. They've got a floating slip and a gully, a mid-wicket, mid-on, mid-off, and extra cover. Steve Smith with a century in his sights. Joseph bowls to him. He plays late, rolls it to gully. He was trying to get the runs down at third man, but the imposing figure of Jason Holder denied.
That's only metres away from the 100. But then, you know, when he drops that fraction shorter, the Australians are going to score. Good full.
Smith. A Hogg, having not got that away. Wide of mouth in the aftermath. So still he'll try. Steve Smith tapping away. Joseph is in and at him, and Smith's in behind, defending, respecting what's been sent down from the West Indies quickest bowler.
Dot balls are good for the West Indies, just building up the anticipation. Not often you see one batsman on 194, the other batsman 98.
Yes. What are they up to? 225 as a partnership. Joseph trying to deny Steve Smith and maybe even uproot him. Smith plays from his pads. He leans on it, gets it past square leg, but he knows there's only one. He goes to 99, 2 for 377 with a couple to come in the over.
Perth crowd not happy.
They'll have to wait a little longer. Come from the spinner at the other end in all likelihood.
Oh, Marnus could hit a 6 and
he
bring up his double 100 before him.
Jump down the pitch. No,
if it's a 6, it's going to be a hook pull shot.
It's down under us at fine leg, what he did yesterday, which was just a phenomenal modern shot, thoroughly modern. Labuschagne's on 194. Joseph bowls to him. He's beaten past the outside edge. This has been Joseph's best over since he started early yesterday.
Yep.
He got totally lost the longer yesterday went.
But it looks to me like the ball's still shaping away. He's got a really good wrist release, Joseph. A natural outswinging action. Don't leave there.
Just meanders back to the top of his mark. Compression bandages. Gives the impression of wearing the long sleeves. Joseph bowls to Labuschagne, who leaves up over the stumps. The GWM Ute scoreboard. GWM go with more. 2 for 377. Colo's coming in.
It's never been more important to buy Australian than right now. Our local manufacturers and growers produce world-class products known for their quality, safety and reliability, all while generating local jobs, supporting our communities and helping Australian families now